And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the continuation of the UKSimRacing community's Porsche Cup Season 5, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks rounds 9 and 10, which mark the halfway point of the season, of course, and with it the venture to our 5th venue of the championship calendar. And we are here at none other than the Norwegian circuit in the location of Darracott, that is the Rudskogen Motorsenter. Now, not commonly known compared to its counterparts on our season's calendar, this Herman Tilke redesigned circuit in the early course of the noughties is a circuit which is tight, it is technical, but it offers plenty of overtaking opportunities over the course of its 14 corners. And with a 42 metre elevation change over the course of the entire lap, where drivers charging their way through the Norwegian countryside and into local forestry, it is a circuit that's highly scenic, but it is also going to be the scene of plenty of battles from corner to corner and lap after lap. To do well here, our drivers are going to need to be bold on the brakes, be smart with the throttle, and be sensitive through those corners, making sure to manage the momentum and the weight change of the car as they transfer it between corners in particular sequences, and none other than the run out of turn number 3 and 4 and up the hill towards turn number 8, and also in the run through the elongated right-handers of turns 2 and 14. But whichever way it goes for our drivers today, the key factor for them is going into the second half of the season after tonight, they'll all be looking for the best possible performance they can, and who will come out on top. That's the story that we're going to find out. Now, as our drivers get ready to go racing, as you can see in the background, currently in their final practice warm-up session, allow us to introduce the broadcast to you. This broadcast is being brought to you live via the YouTube platform, particularly on the UKSimRacing official YouTube channel. And if you're not currently subscribed to the channel, then why not do so today in order to be able to stay up to date with all our latest broadcasts across our series, including the Porsche Cup and also the GT3 League. On top of that as well, in the commentary booth, you have myself. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. Now we bring you all of your racing action over the course of this night and indeed the remainder of the Championship Series. But speaking of the Championship Series, let's look ahead to the season ahead and indeed the calendar that has been absolutely packed full of racing action so far, and we've still got plenty more to come. Now, we started off, of course, all the way back on the 5th of January 2023 with a new year coming on in. It was a good time to start a new season of the Porsche Cup, and we start off with rounds 1 and 2 at Alton Park. The British circuit there, tight and technical and quite twisty as well, with some rather pronounced elevation changes. It does sound a bit synonymous to Darracott's circuit of Rudskogen Motorsenter, but the difference is the Little Cheshire circuit, or the Little Budworth circuit in Cheshire, saw our drivers really push the limit when it came to overtakes, and track position was the ultimate king in achieving success. We saw plenty of battles there, and particularly a thrilling feature race which saw our gold lead change hands right at the last minute between our three drivers, and in the end it was the rise of what was our driver from the German outfit of the WSR Racing, and it was none other, as we do try to remember the names there, of Marcel Fritsch, who took home the win. Indeed, the Austrian having an absolutely brilliant drive to the conclusion. We then round forward to rounds 3 and 4 at the Interlagos circuit, and that was on the 12th of January there in Brazil. And in Sao Paulo, Brazil, our drivers went toe-to-toe once again at a circuit that's normally associated with being at the end of the championship calendar, but indeed at the start of our championship calendar, albeit just slightly off of the start. And there we saw plenty of battles as well, but major drama on the grid start for the sprint race, where we saw our gold drivers really come to blows, and it led to a shake-up in the order that never quite settled in the run through the feature as well. Then we went to what was the French circuit at Magny-Cours, or the Circuit de Nevers at Magny-Cours. It's known in full on the 19th of January, and then rounds 5 and 6 on the circuit recently introduced to iRacing, where we saw plenty of drama up and down the field, but with that drama came surprises and prizes, and indeed Roxanne Marshall in the silver class making it 2 wins out of 2 back-to-back and picking up our first 2 maiden wins for it. And then last time out on the 26th of January, we made our way from France to neighbouring Germany for the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg circuit, and in rounds 7 and 8 we saw a battle to remember for the ages in the gold class, but it was the rise of a newcomer in France of Philipp Hammer, who picked up 2 out of 2 wins in France and made it a further 2 out of 2 wins in Germany, albeit in the feature race, having to pick his way through the gold order all the way back from P6, but he found his way through on the final lap to take victory in what was an absolutely dramatic way to wrap up the proceedings. Now, of course, today we're here at Rudskogen for rounds 9 and 10 on the 2nd of February, and as we make our way into the second half of the season, our 6th venue for rounds 11 and 12 will see us make our way over to the United States of America. Across the Atlantic Ocean we go, and that will be for the Belle Isle circuit, located in the city of Detroit in the state of Georgia. Our drivers will be absolutely itching to go racing over the course of the street circuit, the one and only street circuit on our calendar, and we'll talk a little bit more about it next time, but it is a circuit like no other when it comes to street circuit racing. We'll then continue the theme of staying in the United States, but we're making our way to the state of Wisconsin for the Road America circuit for rounds 13 and 14 on the 16th of February, and then the wide open expanses and the flying corners It'll be very different compared to the circuit of Belle Isle, but still, the key thing will remain, and that is absolutely intense racing from start to finish. We'll then make our way back to Europe for Spain, and in particular the circuit to Barcelona Catalunya for rounds 15 and 16, our penultimate venue on the 23rd of February, and they're a very tricky circuit, and one that's focused around track position above all else, and it will bring it all to a close around 17 and 18 in our season finale venue of Sebring Circuit on the 2nd of March, and they're on the old airfields of the United States. We'll see our drivers try to land the ultimate score, which is the championship crown. But who will come away our champion? We've got a long way to go still, and the story continues as we make our way into tonight. Now, going into tonight, in terms of the story in our championships, we take a look back at what is our drivers' championships first, starting with the gold class. And we can see here now, after what is there 8 rounds, it should not say after 6 of 18 rounds. I believe that is a typo that we just go quickly fix there. But after what is 8 rounds of racing, where it has been absolutely close between our drivers from start to finish, but Philipp Hammer, with now 4 wins on the bounce, has jumped into the championship lead in the gold standings, 5 points clear of both Tim Darracott and Lee Holmes. The WS Racing Esports driver there, holding the FX Esports and ATEC Tech Racing Team Purple drivers at bay, and the challenge really will be here for Philipp Hammer is can he continue that run of form that has really seen him hold sway over the championship. Alternatively, will he find that his momentum is curbed? Surely at some point somebody's going to be able to break his run of wins, but who will be that driver who is able to do so? And can also our drivers battling for P2 of Darracott and Holmes keep themselves separate from one another long enough to take the fight to Hammer, because of course they're in a close and intense rivalry. But let's not forget about a further 6 points behind that, Emil Koopmans for Apex Missers, who are also having a good run of form, albeit had some difficulty in the last couple of venues we visited, but in the general has been finding a way to subvert that misfortune and turn it around into solid pace. With Marcel Fritsch a further 4 points behind there for WS Racing Esports, and then we have a further 4 points to Joe Newman from simracing, the driver who proved to frustrate Philipp Hammer last time out in Germany, albeit couldn't quite keep him at bay all the way to the end of the feature, but definitely showed that his defensive capabilities are unmatched in class. We then have Samuel K. Sproul there for Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, EMP7, the best part of which is 24 points behind Joe Newman and falling shy of the top 6 and really holding on to that battle for P7 ahead of Simon Bamber, the privateer, there, a further point behind, and also a further point back to Nathan Foster from simracing, 31 points, and he only holds 1 point over Karen Willesey from Willesey Racing. So we really do have a battle, or a pair of battles inside the top 10. There's the battle for the championship lead between our top 6, and then there's the battle for P7 with the remainder of our drivers inside the top 10. But it'd be rude of us to exclude Danny Hugendorf from Apex Missers, best of the rest there in P11, also Ryan Walker for Satellite Racing, and Corey Lazarus there for Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, with the trio there only being respectively 3, 5 and 7 points off of the top 10, and they'll be itching to try and turn things around and get into the fight tonight. Steve Hughes, the privateer, there on 8 points, 1 point clear of Dan Blackwell for simracing Academy. Then we have Nathan Scott, P16 for simracing on 6 points, ahead of Andy Jones for DZW Racing, who's yet to put a point on the board. Now coming on to our silver class standings, meanwhile, we see here Ash England from Willesey Racing on 102 points, 22 points clear of Roxanne Marshall, and it was Ash England who last time out made it a double at the Hockenheimring to turn things around, and what a stellar result there for the Willesey Racing driver. And can he continue that run of form, given now that he subverted the momentum of Roxanne Marshall from 24-hour punty people? And we're sorry to tell you that we do understand that Roxanne Marshall will be not joining us tonight, and therefore it could be Ash England's opportunity to really break away at the top of the standings. Meanwhile in P3 there, a sizable win is in return, 14 points behind Shane Pigott for ATEC Tech Racing Team Red. He'll be looking for a solid run of results today, because he'll try to break away from James Kersop, the privateer, who just seems to be absolutely confounded when it comes to bad luck in terms of his racing, in the fact he's got so much pace behind his fingertips, but just not having the run he needs to deploy it consistently and bring home those results. Indeed, we are going to expect he's going to pick up a win some point, given the pace he has shown. Could it be today? And he has got 6 points over Jack Ward there for Willesey Racing in P5. However, it's not just about the top 5, with Craig Shaw further 2 points behind there for ATEC Tech Racing Team Cyan, ahead of his rival teammate there of what is Glenn Humberstone for ATEC Tech Racing Team Purple, the sister team driver there, in a close fight between himself and Craig Shaw, and also Alistair Hatcher behind him, P8 there on 5 points off 45 points. And we see the ATEC Tech Racing Team Cyan drives sandwiching Glenn Humberstone, and they have a reasonable margin out over Matt Maddox of BDM Racing, who sits a further what is 11 points behind. Completing the top 10 is the privateer of Ross McFowle on 24 points, taking clear of Ashley Coverdale for simracing Academy. And then we have Darren Fellows there in P12 for BDM Racing, yet to score any points. And also Darren Eels there in P13 for 88 Tech Racing Team Red. Both drivers in attendance today. And well, for Fellows in particular, it's the first time we see him take to the circuit in anger this season. And good luck to the BDM Racing. Now coming on to the Teams Championship, we talked about our drivers. In the team standings, we can see here that WS Racing Esports on 130 points there, the best part of what is now 41 points clear of simracing, and seemingly looking unstoppable at this point in time, with Hammer really nailing race after race, lap after lap, and to be fair, Marcel Fritsch not too far behind either when it comes to scoring the big points. Meanwhile, simracing now find themselves having to go on a bit of a rear guard action, trying to hold off Apex Vistas by a single point, and the gap between them could not be close as they make their way into this round, with ATEC Racing Team Purple's consistency giving them the P4 position there, 8 points clear of Effect Esports, who hold on to a place inside the top 5 at P5. We now have Willersley Racing just 4 off of the top 5 there and looking to fight their way back in tonight, and they have a margin of 15 points over Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, and then to complete the top 10 is Satellite Racing, 1 point ahead of 24-hour Punty People, and then we have a further 5 points behind ATEC Racing Team at Siam, who have a 3-point advantage over best of the rest there, ATEC Racing Team at Red, the sister teams in a bit of a rivalry, and then we have Simran Racing Academy on 9 points, 1 point clear of BDM Racing, and DCW Racing bringing up the rear of the standings there with 0 points to their name so far. With the championship standings covered, let's come on to our circuit for today, and well, it is none other than the circuit we mentioned previously, and that is the circuit of Rudskogen Motorsenter, located near Rakestad in Norway. And in this circuit, as you can see from the circuit map provided us by simracingwiki.com, thank you to them for their circuit maps as always, of course. This is a circuit of 14 corners, and it is a very tricky one with it. And with major elevation changes, albeit not articulated by a two-dimensional drawing, you can imagine our drivers will definitely have to deal with the elevation changes lap after lap and keep it smart and keep it consistent. But as they make their way across the timeline and down towards turn number 1, they'll head on the longest stretch of straight on the course of the circuit, and of course this is a standard Hermann Tilke redesign to the circuit in the fact that it consists of extended straights and then multitudes of corner sequences. So there's going to be a number of overtaking opportunities available, some that come with the straights and the battles into the early braking zones, and sometimes it'll be all about that momentum change through the corners and try to carry that momentum. But as they make their way into turn number 1, it'll be a trail off the brakes into turn 1, the left-hander, before rolling the car through turn number 2 with that momentum change into long right-hander, and as they come out of the second corner, they'll power their way downhill into turn number 3. It's the long drop into turn 3. They'll trail brake their way through the first apex before hitting the late apex at turn 4 and make their way back up the hill at the lowest elevation point all the way up towards turn number 8. Head through the serpentine sequence at turns 5, 6 and 7 there, the left, right, left, they'll get ready to go onto the brakes and drop their way into turn number 8 apex before making their way through the kink of 9 and powering downhill into the hairpin at turn number 10, where we can expect plenty of overtaking opportunities. And as they make their way out of turn 10, they'll head uphill once again through the kink of 11, battling their way into turn number 12 in the sharp left-hand right angle corner before making their way into turns 13 and 14, which are quite synonymous, if you will, with turns 1 and 2, will be a bit more open in the run to the late apex of turn 14, and it's all about getting back on the throttle as soon as possible and powering out towards the timeline to do it all over again. And as we come for our rules today, we do of course remind you of the rules. These have stayed the same over the course of the season and no changes to them. In qualifying, a lone qualifying format shall be used, so all of our drivers will go to the circuit in an isolated instance and have an opportunity to split in their qualifying laps, and they'll have 8 minutes to set their best possible time, unlimited laps, but 8 minutes in total. Races shall commence via a standing start, as is the tradition as we try to get our words out there, and the sprint race grid shall be set based on results of qualifying. Meanwhile, the feature race grid shall be a partial reverse grid based on results of the sprint race, with the top 8 positions inverted. So what that means is our race winner in the sprint race will be starting P8 in the feature, and we make our way all the way down to P8, who'll be starting on pole, and then P9 and further back will be the finishing positions of the sprint as put onto the grid there for the feature. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements in either of the races. One fast repair is available in each race, and the driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 14 or more instant points. But that's enough rules, regulation, and all in between. I know what you're all here for, and as we head to our live pictures, well, let's take you through our schedule for tonight. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time, UTC. We'll be getting underway with our qualifying session in just under 2 minutes time, 8 minutes in duration as just previously mentioned, and then we'll make our way to the grid for our first of 2 races today in the round number 9 sprint race, 12 minutes in duration at approximately 10 past 8, and then we'll see at the duration of the racing 2.5 times in terms of its multiplier up to 30 minutes, and that'll be for our second race of the day, and that'll be approximately just before 8:30 this evening. We'll head to the grid, and that'll be for our 30-minute feature race, the round number 10 race, to wrap it all up and then conclude our proceedings in the first half of this season. But as our drivers get themselves set, well, we do look right now to Darren Fellows making his way on around, and of course joining midway through the season. That is going to add a degree of complexity and a challenge for him. He'll find himself having to nestle in to the rest of the pack and get himself asserted in amongst his silver drivers in particular, and racing for BDM Racing in the silver class. We wish him all the best of luck. They're currently looking quite good in this qualifying session, down in P14, they're P6 in class. And as he makes his way through turns 1 and 2 at the moment, well, number 404 driver getting himself settled in and also getting ready to really attack the circuit in anger for the first time this season as he heads on down the hill there towards turn number 3. But as he makes his way on down, we do also look to Marcel Fritsch here, who right now tucked in behind Philipp Hammer, his teammate for WS Racing Esports, and the Austrian driver here in the number 7 car. Definitely, perhaps a little bit overshadowed compared to his teammate in terms of the stellar performances up the very front. But Fritsch, no stranger to battling hard for position, and always continued to give the fight. We saw plenty of battling from Fritsch in Germany last time out. Now, we must apologise, ladies and gentlemen, in the fact that normally we would be able to interact with you guys and girls in the live YouTube chat, but due to technical difficulties, it would seem that we're not able to actually see the YouTube chat at the moment, so therefore we're not going to be able to see any messages that you do send. But I hope you're all doing well and excited for tonight, and we'll do feel free to interact with one another in the chat all the same. Do let one another know, and do indeed let us know who you're going to be cheering on tonight, albeit we're not going to be able to quite see it, but I hope you're all set for some fantastic racing action. And as our drivers only have 30 seconds before they do get set, if you have been a long-time follower of UKSimRacing and you've ever wondered how you can support the community, did you know there's a quick way to do so via our affiliates? For UKSimRacing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Swallow and Meadow Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere and Demon Tweaks. And if you head to our website, uksimracing.co.uk today, which will pop up briefly on screen shortly, there is a page which you can see just slightly off the bottom left-hand corner there, which is listed as discount stroke affiliate links, where you'll be taken to our affiliates. And if you click on that link, you'll see a screen as follows, and you'll see there are affiliates images or their logos. And if you click on any of these logos, you can make purchases through the sites you're redirected to, which result in discounts for you as the consumer and a kickback to us at UKSimRacing. And in turn, as we are a non-profit organisation, all of our affiliate earnings shall be invested back into the community to fund future series. Additionally, some of our affiliates provide discount codes which are available in the UKSimRacing Discord. And do remember, a little purchase could go a long way in supporting UKSimRacing. And well, as we talk about little things going a long way, right now, one big thing that could go a long way today is a strong qualifying lap. And as we do look back to our live pictures here, we see James Kershaw making his way out of the pit lane immediately and getting himself set up from the outset as he makes his way on through turns 1 and 2. We do seem to have lost our circuit map there for a brief moment. We'll see if we can get that back. But as he heads on down the hill currently, well, he's going to get himself warmed up on the tyres. And, well, what does it take to have a good qualifying lap here at the Rudskogen Motorsenter circuit? In short, what you need to do is find that track temperature firstly and find that tyre temperature. And speaking of track temperatures, we bring up the weather radar on the right-hand side of the screen there, our latest update. What you can see with regards to ambient, it's 90 degrees centigrade and it's 22 degrees at track temperature, so it's quite moderate, not too warm, not too cold, but our drivers will want to get those tyres warmed up as best as possible so that way they can go on the offensive immediately come their first fine lap. But success around here all comes down to the ability to really keep it consistent and calm and controlled. This is a circuit that really does punish if you push too hard, and indeed you can see from the multitude of corners as Kershaw makes his way on around. And we also look to Matt Maddox here making his way through turns 3 and 4. This is a circuit with so many minor elevation changes, pronounced elevation changes and direction changes between quarters. You really do need to be smooth from corner to corner should you wish to do well. Pushing it too hard, you'll either find a bit of oversteer creeps into the car, alternatively you end up understeering off the circuit because of the direction change at the last moment. Just catches the front end of the car out and washing it on out. And as Maddox makes his way down the hill in towards turn number 10, well, we do look from him to one of our drivers who's making the way onto a lap, and that's in the silver class here of Ash England as he comes across the timeline, and we jump aboard for a flying lap. He's making his way down towards turn number 1 and braking there about 70 metres of corner apex, trailing down to second gear and bringing the car onto the apex curve there at turn number 2 as he now powers out, unleashes the steering wheel, brings it as straight as possible, putting 2 wheels beyond the white line but keeping 2 just within the white line, and now he goes through the drop into turn number 3, heading up into 5th gear, trail braking here approximately what is 90 metres of corner apex down to full, drops to 3rd there to let the car settle and calm down the front end before he points it into the apex of turn 4 and powering out here now, heading up into the serpentine sequence. Through turn 5, hold the throttle there in 3rd gear, hold the throttle again through turn number 6, now into turn 7, drops the 2nd gear because it's a double apex. He comes on down through the drop into turn number 8 and then begins to build up the throttle in 2nd gear as he powers out through the kink of 9 and now down the hill he goes towards turn number 10. From 4th gear he's going to brake aggressively 70 metres down to 2nd gear, using the board to his right hand side as a reference marker, and as he comes down in 1st gear, now powers up through the kink of 11 and heads into turn number 12. Another braking zone here. It's a short run down from third into second gear. Plenty of apex curve and will pull the car around. Now heading into left-hander of 13. Rolls the car left into right, much like turns 1 and 2. Drops it down to second gear, lets the car go deep, so that way he can go for a late apex. Brings it back to the apex line and pounds on out, and that is a lap of the Rudskogen Motorsenter circuit as brought to you by Ash England. And as he heads to the timeline, what's it going to be here for our silver championship leader? It is a 1:23.811, a great lap out the box there, 2/10 faster than anybody else. England definitely heading on through and looking for a strong start to his qualifying session as we briefly lose him, and he does rematerialise there due to latency. But as he heads on down, we see Samuel Sproul, meanwhile P6 there on a 24.555, only 7.5 tenths off of England. And when we say only 7.5 tenths, because we know that our drivers normally do find over the course of qualifying 3, 4, 5 tenths worth of time immediately on the second lap as those tyres continue to come up to temperature ever more, and therefore it does make it a bit difficult for our drivers in terms of trying to hit those laps immediately out of the box, but they do manage to do so to the best of their capabilities. As we see Sproul making his way through turns 3 and 4 right now, heading on up the hill. Well, looking smooth at the moment, but the challenge for him is this smoothness will also need to be added to just a little bit more velocity over the entirety of the lap if he wants to get himself inside the top 2 rows of the grid. And we'll give him the run into turn 1, where it's going to be that sharp left-hander into the extended right-hander. Being on the front 2 rows of the grid will do drivers great favour in terms of having a good start to their day. But speaking of one driver right now, who whilst he didn't have the best opening warm-up, opening flying lap we should say, but his second lap has definitely been a whole pace up the field. It's Philipp Hammer there who goes for visual pole on a 23.159, but there's an immediate response from this man from simracing. It's Nathan Scott who goes P2 on a 23.186, absolutely hitting the lap there, and only 2.5 hundredths off a Hammer. I think today we could see somebody match Hammer an outright pace. I think this could be the first time this season where it really does become 2 for now in qualifying. As he makes his way down through turn 3 and into 4, you see Sproul there improving to P3. Remember, of course, a lot of our drivers going on to and completing their second flying lap and moving on to their third one shortly, so therefore there's plenty of opportunity for them to improve. As we see Nathan Foster making his way through turn number 14, currently P13, the lowest of our drivers who have set a lap time. We do have drivers that have yet to set a lap time, including what is Fritsch, Maddox, Eels, Schill and Hugendorn, but we can see that Roxanne Marshall with the retirement, of course, due to technical issues, and we do wish her well coming back for next week. Hopefully those technical issues can be resolved, but Nathan Foster jumps up to P10 overall there, but it's thrown back to P11 with what is there, Danny Hugendorn jumping up to PA, and well, the exchanges continue as we see Darren Ilsen making his way into turn number 14, coming on through for iRacing Team Red, and as he comes out the final corner, very tight line there, not letting the car roll deep and optimising was a run on the apex curve all the way through. That may have cost him a little bit of time, but if it's a valid lap, he'll be pleased with that to get it on the board, but it looks so there the lap has not qualified, and therefore with only 2 minutes to go, and with the fact there's no overtime in qualifying, our drivers have to finish qualifying dead on the 8-minute mark. They'll be taken back to the pits, therefore he's only got 1 lap left in the tank, and the same for Craig Schill as he comes to the line, and as he makes way on across here, would he get a lap that is valid? Not currently, no. In fact, he's just gone into his first flying lap of the day in this qualifying session. Well, the Team Cyan iRacing driver here leaving it late, as we hear that Ash England's gone up to P2 on a 22.98. Hammer has improved to a 22.62, or a 618 as you can see it. They're down to the 1,000, and well, will anybody else be able to respond? Nathan Scott, the fastest of everybody in Sector 1, but was not able to dethrone Hammer, and instead starts P4. He's gone to the pit lane. Well, not too many more laps available to our drivers now, as we hear that Glenn Humberstone has come into the pits from what is P3 in the silver class provisionally, as we see Nathan Foster improves to P9, but we continue to focus here on Craig Schill as he nurses the car through turns 7 and 8 here, trying to keep that nose pointed on the straight and narrow as he makes his way out to the dip and into the rise of the Kinker 9, and as he comes on down, he will just about get this lap in with about 10 to 15 seconds to spare as he heads up through the right-hander turn number 10. A very tricky hairpin there, given the fact you're going into a depression and then you're emerging into a rise, and therefore that can lead to you getting quite greedy with the throttle and causing excess oversteer on power exit. But as he makes his way through turn number 12, there goes a little bit deep, misses the apex curve. We've still got more exchanges there. Cameron Willesee improves to P3 on a 23.145. That's overall, and P2 in the gold class, but Schill makes his way out to the final corner. Yet to get a time on the board, The same for Darren Hills, who has not got a time on the board, and she will be our last driver to get an effective time in, as we're to understand. In fact, it might be Samuel Sproul, but we can see there Shield jumps to P16 on 26.063, but it's a lap and it counts. Sproul improves to P5 there, right at the depth of the qualifying session at 23.236, and it just knocks Darracott down one position. They'll share the row, the third row together, but that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, and it is Philipp Hammer who takes over on gold pole. Meanwhile, alongside him on the front row, it's silver pole sitter Ash England. But as we now look to the grid, this is how they line up for the sprint race of today in round 9 of the Porsche Cup Season 5. Philipp Hammer takes pole position for WS Racing Esports, making it 3 poles in a row, ahead of Ash England there, the silver pole sitter for Willesee Racing, joining Hammer on the front row, 3.5 tenths separating the two of them. We then have Cameron Willesee and Nathan Scott line up on the second row for Willesee Racing and simracing Racing respectively, followed up by Samuel Sproul for Blackout Motorsport New Zealand and Tim Darracott for Effect Esports. And as we continue on down to the full row, it's Lee Holmes on 88 Tech Racing Team Purple, joined by Jack Ward there for Willesee Racing. On the 5th row to complete the top 10, it's Glenn Humberstone from 88 Tech Racing Team Purple, joined by WS Racing Esports is Marcel Fritsch, with Nathan Foster for simracing Racing P11, joined on the 6th row by Daniel Hugendorn for Apex Missers. And as we look outside of the top 6 rows, on row at number 7 we can see James Kersop there, the privateer in the silver class, joined on the 7th row by fellow silver driver BDM Racing of Darren Fellows on his debut qualifying session, with Alistair Hatch for 88 Tech Racing Team Cyan starting P15 on the 8th row, joined by 88 Tech Racing Team Cyan, his fellow teammate there of Craig Schill. And then on our final complete row, will not be Roxanne Marshall due to technical issues triggering an early retirement from today's racing. Instead, it will be Darren Hills and Matt Maddox effectively, who will be battling from the final row of the grid for 88 Tech Racing Team Red and BDM Racing respectively. That is the grid as they'll line up for our sprint racer today in round number 9, and as all of our drivers are looking to get themselves prepared here, we are missing our circuit map. We will try and get that reloaded for you before we go racing and have the lights. And in fact, there we do, we get it back just in time. We have two more drivers to take to the grid, but the gridding process is complete. We now wait the lights. It's lights out and away we go for race number 1 today, as Philipp Hammer looks to get a good start and fend off Ash England in the run to turn 1. But more prominently there, Nathan Scott trying to go around the outside of Samuel Sproul, who covers the inside off immediately, and Sproul gaining ground early on, but Scott comes on back as they make the way through the right hand here, and he gets it done. And as they come out to turn number 2, Scott holds the position further back. Marcel Fritsch to the side by side with Nathan Foster as they come out of 2 and down the drop to 3 they roar. But as they roar the way down in towards the braking zone, the challenge will now be who's going to be bold on the brakes the first time round. Give them cold tyres, cold brakes, and all in between. Well, it looks though Fritsch there had been a bit conservative, but you can see Foster goes deep. A number of our drivers opted to go a little bit deep here, and we can see there that is Matt Maddox, who's gone wide at turns 3 and 4 and brings it back together. But meanwhile, it's already kicking off here between Alistair Hatch and Craig Schill. As you can see, Hatch just ahead of Schill, and meanwhile Darren Fellows trying to make the move on around. But as they come through turn 17 to 8, they all stagnate and go line astern in the drop through 8. But as they make the way up towards turn number 10, will we see any potential moves into the hairpin here? Well, right now Darren Fellows definitely trying to get a move on early, looks up the inside, goes right under braking, he's got his nose in, and it looks like their Shield sees him coming and gives him the space, and Darren Fellows gains ground for his P4 in the silver class as they make the way up towards turn number 12. But as they come on through the left hand, and now can Fellows go one step further and gets on the podium. He loses the rear end instead and towards the tyre barrier. It's a brief scrape to the tyre barrier, but he just about avoids a major knock, but that's going to knock his confidence, there's no doubt about it. But after one lap, it's Philipp Hammer who leads to WS Racing Esports by 1.2 seconds over silver leader Ash England behind the gold leader. Then it's Nathan Scott in P3, followed by Samuel Sproul P4, Lee Holmes P5, followed by Tim Darracott and Karen Willesee. Then Nathan Foster P8, Marcel Fritsch in at P9, and then completing the top 10, albeit for a brief moment, it was James Kersop who's had a run wide at turn 1, and Alistair Hatcher takes the final spot inside the overall top 10, and now James Kersop bests the rest in P11 as they make the way down the hill once more. But in the charge towards turn number 3 this time around, we can see here Craig Schill looking for the move on Kersop, who's still trying to recover a bit of pace after that fall off the circuit, and Craig Schill now moves up to P11, P3 in the silver class as he comes on through the double right of 3-4 and heads up towards turn number 8. But as he comes charging up the hill, meanwhile Ash England, they're going very slowly in fact in the run on through when it's turn 7 into 8. I wonder what exactly happened to Ash England. It was all going well in P2, and then it's come to a bit of a stumbling station. But as he makes his way down to turn number 10 at the moment, it doesn't look as though it's anything too severe because he's still in it to win it. But I wonder if there was just a brief error and perhaps a lock up into turn 7 and he had to release the brakes on the outside line. Meanwhile, behind we can see Tim Darracott here staying close with Cameron Willesey as right now he goes chasing after our Season 4 Silver Class winner, promoted to the Gold Class of this season, of course, and right now finding his feet. Well, he was finding his feet early in the season, but continues to really find his place in amongst his gold peers. But right now, Willesey will be worried about the fact that Darracott is not given any breathing room as they make their way down towards turn 1 at once again. They come charging across the timeline, and well, things have settled for a brief moment, but you know, drama's only a moment away here in the Porsche Cup. As meanwhile, we see James Kersop into the pit lane there in the rear of the picture. It's gone wrong for Kersop, and Darren Hills has been involved in a bit of an incident. But meanwhile, we look here, I believe it's a slowdown for Nathan Scott on the inside there, coming out of turn number 2, and well, he's having to let the whole field go on by him as they make their way down to turn 3. And you can see that Nathan Scott defending versus Cameron Willesey as he tries to hold position, but Willesey there cuts back to the inside when Nathan Scott overcooking the run into turn 3 on that inside line. Very tricky corner, and as they make their way through turns 5, 6 and 7 in quick succession once again, well, will we see anybody else a victim to a slowdown in short order? Because it does look so many a driver having mistakes. And speaking of mistakes, we take a look back at what happened to Ash England as he fell out of P2 overall. Was he made his way up the hill here through turns 5, 6 and into 7. England there, well, he was braking for turn 7 and I think almost locking up the brakes and let it go, as you also saw in the background there Tim Darracott going to pit wide, trying to sweep his way back on what was there Cameron Willesey and not being able to find a way through. But as we return to the live pictures now, the racing continues. James Kersop has left the pit lane. I wonder if there's a little bit of damage on the car from the moment of what was turn at number 1, perhaps a bit of damage to the tyre compound, and therefore deciding to play it safe. Switch the tyres out, but as our drivers head across the timeline again, well, now it really does come down to who has found that momentum and can get themselves settled in nicely. And one driver who really has found that momentum is P2 driver from New Zealand, or that Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, that is Samuel K. Sproul, as he makes his way through 2 and down towards 3. He's got Lee Holmes behind him. As we ride on board and look back from the rear gearbox of Sproul's car, you see the gap there at approximately 4 tenths, stabilising at the moment. Lee Holmes will be trying to find a way to get in the head of Sproul, get him to make a mistake, but Sproul looking very composed as they come through the right-hander at turn 4. No exchange at the moment, and meanwhile Ash England behind continues to watch on your silver leader. I think he would like to pick up an overall podium as well to add to his trophy cabinet, but as they make their way through 7 and down through 8 now, Sproul going a bit slowly down the corner exit, struggling a little bit to get the car to bite to the apex curve this time. I think perhaps the first mistake we've seen from all race as they head down into the turn 10 hairpin. Meanwhile, further back, Jack Ward here battling on the inside versus Alistair Hatcher, and as they exit out the corner, Wood gets it done for UKSimRacing. The 48 driver moves up into P3 in the silver class and now go hunting after Craig Schill, only since 1.5 seconds ahead of him. As they make their way out to the corner, how exactly did the pass come about? This is in the run into turn number 7, and you can see there how Hatcher just went a little bit deep initially in the run out to 7 into 8, and Wood just simply said, okay, don't mind if I do, got his nose stuck in there and made the move count. But as we return to the live pictures here, there's a bit of drama further back from Matt Maddox, who's gone around there at turn number 12. He points it the right way, but as he heads on through, and we're hearing that James Kersop has had to be towed to the pits. I'm not quite sure what's happened to James Kersop, but definitely not his start of the day wanted. But as we see here, Maddox trying to get himself back up to speed, a spin much like what we saw earlier on for other drivers, and getting it wrong at turn number 12. Well, there's only one way to get it right in the end, and well, it's a very tricky corner, turn 12, given the fact it's such a sharp apex curve after the run out to turn number 10. But meanwhile, we look to Ash England here, running P5 at the moment overall, continuing to find himself in amongst all the gold drivers here, and well, he has got only 3 tenths of an advantage over Nathan Scott, who would love to get on through for the simple reasons we move into the second half of this race. Scott's going to be looking to try and get himself inside the top 3 of the gold class and overall as they head the way down the hill. But well, speaking of those potential positions on the podium, I think right now the big opportunity is in the battle for P2. As you can see there, Lee Holmes staying close to Sproul, but not close enough to go on the offensive completely, and the same for Cameron Willesey and P4 behind. But meanwhile, as they make their way through turns 13 and 14, we see Tim Darracott here closing up behind what is there Nathan Foster, as both tries to drift their way off the curve at turn 13, and we jump on board with the Effect Esports driver. Now makes his way in the corner. Oh, goodness me, and Foster there almost losing the rear of the car. Darracott comes on through to take the position as they make the way up towards turn number 1. But that could have been very dear to Curtis to the pair of them as they make the way into left-hander, and Darracott gets the move done. And as they come through the right-hander at turn number 2, with the Effect Esports driver there definitely having one of those moments where I think he was wondering what exactly was going to happen, and in the end found out that for Nathan Foster it was a slight slide on power on the exit, a little bit of an oversteer moan He had to correct it, and Darracott just simply coming on through as a result of being able to be a bit evasive as they come through turns 3 and 4. Now Darracott's next target will be Nathan Scott, who is 1.8 seconds up the road. You can see him there off in the distance, but it's a long way to go and not long left in this race, given the fact we've only really got 4 minutes left on the clock. But meanwhile, looking back to Matt Maddox here, battling for what is their P6 in the silver class versus Alistair Hatcher P5, and Darren Fellows behind. It's a lock up there for Maddox. He almost locks it all the way onto the apex there at turn 3. Just gets it stopped in time, however, could release the brake, but it looks like the car was going to turn into a missile for a brief moment as the medium racing driver now gets himself back under control. Well, we can see that Hatcher getting P4 off of the medium racing driver. The 18 Tech Racing driver Alistair Hatcher continues to gain ground after a difficult start to the race, but now making progress, and Maddox having to worry about the fact that Fellows is not too far behind and looking for the opportunity to try and come on through in the battle between the two teammates. You can see a bit of damage there to the front of Fellows' car, and I think that may be a sign of what happened earlier on in the race as they make their way through the kink of 11. Fellows continue to push on through. Up the inside he goes at Maddox. Well, Maddox there holding the inside line for a brief moment, but switching to the outside. I think in the end Fellows seeing the space and going all in for it and getting the move done, and now trying to go hunting after P5 in the silver class to take it off at Alistair Hatcher. But as we look from them to the leader of this race, well, Philipp Hammer right now for WS Racing Esports completely in control, it would seem, of the lead here, an advantage that continues to grow, standing at 6.1 seconds as he comes on through the dip into turn number 8. But as he makes his way on through the corner, meanwhile, same as Sproul here, continues to be chased by Lee Holmes and Cameron Willesey, but showing no signs of wilting under pressure. And as he makes his way out of 8 and down towards 10, well, for Sproul, what else would it take here from his rivals to potentially make him put a foot wrong? Of course, we don't wish for him to put a foot wrong, but they will. But as they make the way out to turn number 10, definitely looking as though he's got the control of this race. Meanwhile, looking back to P8, the critical position on the grid, of course, for in terms of finishing position for setting up pole position in the feature race. We see a Marcel Fitch under pressure from Nathan Foster, but meanwhile, Craig Shield here has been passed by Jack Ward. Ward now up into P2 in the silver class, P10 overall. Well, Ward is absolutely trying to make the ground here and replicate what his teammate Ash England is doing at the very front of the silver pack by a sizable margin of overall positions, which is to make it a Willesey Racing double podium on 1-2. But Shield there gets a good run to the inside of the exit of turn number 14. But as they power their way down towards turn number 1, we jump aboard the gearbox here of Craig Shield, and as they make the way on through, you can see that's Humberstone ahead, but meanwhile on the nose here, on the front bumper of Shield's car, the 18 Tech Racing Team Cyan driver staying close. Can't find the move at the moment, but trying to look for that opportunity as they head out to turn number 2 and down towards 3. Not carrying as much speed this time around. He's in the toe, but I don't think he's got enough here, unless he's going to take it from a long way back. But even then, licking the stamp and sending it, as we like to say, from that far back, well, it's going to be more than first class. That's going to be direct delivery to the inside door panel of Jack Ward's car, but in the end he doesn't go for it, so they make the way through turn 4 and up into 5. But of course, Craig Shaw, very patient driver, gets it a little bit wrong. They're coming off apex at 5 and into 6 when he goes. It compromises his line, but he brings it back together as he comes on down through turn number 8. But that goes to show in the serpentine sequence of turns 5 through to 8 just how one slight mistake can add up in the next couple of corners. But meanwhile, make no mistake here, Lee Holmes is under pressure in the battle for P3 overall in the gold class for what is the final spot on that podium versus Cameron Willesey behind, who continues to inch ever closer, and they are 6/10 of the sparrow in front of them as the race leader Philipp Hammer's gone onto the final lap. We're going to have 9 laps of racing here in the sprint as they make their way down towards turn number 1 once more. Will it be Lee Holmes holding on to that final spot on the podium as they make their way through turns 1 and 2? Meanwhile, Darren Fellows has gone on the round. And oh goodness me, that is at the, in fact that's in the run to turn number 10. I think he might have picked up a little bit of the grass there as he came on down, and well, we won't be able to quite get a replay of that this time. But Lee Holmes here definitely under huge pressure as he heads on through turns 3 and 4, getting a good run off the corner, will set himself up well here. Of course, it's going to be tricky to pass for Willesey, but he'll do everything he can to get Holmes to make a slight error that will set him up for a move through turns 7 and 8. Brown, meanwhile, just being given the breathing room he needs. They come into 7. Willesey takes a bit of a wider approach there as he brings it down into the dip, but no change between them. They stay as they were, but they come on through and down towards turn number 12. Onto the brakes they go. They all stay as they were. Meanwhile, Glenn Humberstone here now trying to make the move on Craig Shield for the final spot on the silver podium in what is P11 overall as they head through turn 8 themselves, but it looks as though Shield's in control. But meanwhile, as he comes through the final corner, he's led it from pole, he's never looked back, and Philipp Hammer's going to make it 5 on the bounce as the WS-Racing Esports driver heads to the line. It's a superb drive, and he takes the checker flag, 7.3 seconds clear of Samuel Sproul, who finishes in P2 at the finish there. Only what is in the end 7 tenths clear of Lee Holmes, who comes home at the final spot of the gold podium ahead of Cameron Willisey, with Ash England at P5 there, and your silver winner by a major margin over his peers. The Willisey Racing driving in the end a top 5 overall as well to go to his bank account, and then Nathan Scott P6 ahead of Tim Darracott P7, Marcel Fritsch P8 ahead of Nathan Foster P9, and will Jack Ward there as we see our drivers coming through. Jack Ward P2 in the silver class, P10 overall, Glenn Humberstone P11 complete in the silver podium, and then at Craig Shield P12 ahead of Danny Hugendorn there as he crosses the line. The Apex Misters drive after starting what was effectively a difficult race, but making his way on up there, and he's starting from the pit lane as we're to understand it, and not making it to the grid in time. Alistair Hatcher in P14, and then Darren Fellows will be coming on through shortly for P15, just missing out on the top 5 in the silver class there behind Hatcher. Matt Maddox following on behind his BDM Racing teammate there, P16, and then it will be Darren Ills who comes on through to finish the race on the lead lap at the last of the finishing positions in P17. James Kersop in the pit lane retiring 5 laps down, and Roxanne Marshall not making it to the grid, of course. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our first race of the day. We're now in the 2-minute interlude session, and that gives us time to give you a quick recap of the finishing results. So the results for round number 9 of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup Season 5 are in here today in the sprint at Rudskogen Motorsenter, and we can see Philipp Hammer taking the win for WS-Racing Esports in the end by 7.4 seconds over Blackout Motorsport New Zealand Samuel Sproul, who had a superb start, led it into P2 after Ash England dropped out of the position and never let go of second place, and really the argument to the best of the rest inside the top 10. Lee Holmes and ATEC Tech Racing Team Purple put the pressure on the New Zealander, but at the same time had more pressure being from Cameron Willisey, who finished P4, and the Willisey Racing driver ahead of his teammate in the silver class of Ash England. The Willisey Racing silver class driver taking the silver class win by a major margin there, tantamount to 15 seconds over his silver peer of Jack Ward in P10. But between the pair, Nathan Scott P6 for simracing Racing, in P7 Tim Darracott for Effect Esports, Marcel Fritsch in P8 for WS Racing Esports, and then Nathan Foster P9 for simracing Racing, with Marcel Fritsch, of course, your reverse pole sitter for that P8 finishing position going into the round 10 feature coming up shortly. Jack Ward in P10 there, picking up P2 in the silver class of Willisey Racing, ahead of Glenn Humberstone, who's best of the rest outside the top 10 for ATEC Tech Racing Team Purple, and also third on the silver podium. Craig Shield there, P12 for ATEC Tech Racing Team at Cyan, losing out on that podium spot towards the end versus Humberstone, with Danny Hugenthorn starting from the pit lane, moving up to P13 for Apex Missers, and Thatcher P14 ahead of Darren Fellows, the BDM Racing driver on his debut, having a stronger race compared to Matt Maddox, but both drivers having difficulties over the race, and then Darren Ills, the last of finishers on the lead lap, and we had the 2 retirees of James Kersop there, the privateer, finishing what was 5 laps down, and Roxanne Marshall not able to make it to the grid due to technical issues, and we will not be seeing Marshall take to the grid for the second racer today. But that's the results in, ladies and gentlemen, and now we are getting set to go racing once again as we see Darren Ills making his way out to the pit lane. Well, he will be taken back to the pit lane very shortly, but it's time to set the grid for the round 10 feature. So as our drivers make their way onto the grid, this is how they line up for the second race of the day. Marcel Fritsch takes reverse grid pole position there, joined on the front row by Tim Darracott. Behind them, it will be the pair of Nathan Scott, and he is joined by Ash England, and they'll be lined up side by side then. Ash England will be looking to try and make it another silver win, and also another overall top 5, with Cameron Willisey and Lee Holmes on the third row of the grid. We then have Samuel Sprout and Philipp Hammer on the fourth row there, your race winner in the gold class. Now he's going to fight his way on through in what should be a very tricky fight through the order, there's no question about it. And then we'll have Nathan Foster and Jack Ward on the 5th row. Outside the top 10, Glenn Humberstone and Craig Shield start on our 6th row, and they'll be followed up by the pair in there of where's Danny Hugendorn and Alistair Hatcher, with Darren Fellows and Matt Maddox on the 8th row, and then Darren Ills and James Kersop on the 9th and final row, completing our 18 drivers taking to the grid. Roxanne Marshall there, of course, listed, but not expected to take to the grid today. But as we get ready to go racing, then Marcel Fritsch will have the challenge, but we have the lights, and now we count down. 1 red light, 2 red lights, 3 red lights, 4 red lights, 5 red lights. And it's lights out and away we go for the feature race at Rudskogen Motorsenter as Marcel Fritsch gets a good start in the run to turn number 1. But Tim Darracott immediately trying to go on the offensive as they come on through. Meanwhile, 3 wide behind as Nathan Scott on the inside there. Karen Willison and Lee Holmes. And behind Ash England loses the place at the start. But he won't mind that too much as Lee Holmes there. Battling side by side with Karen Willison coming through turn number 2. Meanwhile, further back, Danny Hugendorn already gaining 2 places overall as he goes on the offensive versus Nathan Foster. But they come charging down the hill. And Sproul here battling with Jack Ward. And Sproul being passed by Philipp Hammer off the line. But right now holding on as Jack Ward there on the inside line. And to be careful, tiptoeing on the brakes. But they all survive the run into the opening corner. But meanwhile, as they make the way through 3 and 4, they all survive that as well. And Alistair Hatch here battling with Craig Schill as the 2 ATEC Tech Racing Team Cyan drives exchange places once more and make the way into turn number 7 for the first time of asking. But as they roar the way down through the dip and in towards the turn 10 hairpin they charge. Darren Fellows here trying to go round the outside of Craig Schill. It's a good run from Darren Fellows and he's back on the charge here as he makes his way on down and gains the place and moves up to P4 in the silver class there in an absolutely daring move on cold tyres round the outside of a corner you do not pass on the outside of, particularly early on in the race. And meanwhile, Alistair Hatcher now side by side with Schill and trying to look for the move here as they come through turn number 12. And well, Hatcher goes a little bit deep and he has to lift off as James Kersop meanwhile going deep as well and losing out versus Darren Hills. But after 1 lap, it is Marcel Fritsch who comes to the timeline, 3/10 clear of Darracott behind him in P2. Then it's Scott followed by Holmes and Karen Willison to complete the top 5 all gold. Ashington P6 there, your silver leader, followed by Hammer, Sproul, Ward as they make the way into turn number 1 once again. And it's Foster who completes the top 10 ahead of Danny Hugendorn, who is best the rest in P11. But as they make the way onto lap number 2, of course the complexion of this race is much different compared to the complexion of the sprint race. In the sprint they can push it hard and give the tyres a full pelt all the way through. But tyre degradation now will be a key factor here. And also imagine that pace from start to finish goes with it. And will we see anybody potentially fall by the wayside? As soon as I say that, Lee Holmes loses the rear of the car at turn number 3 and goes sliding off the circuit and is almost followed into there by, I believe, that was Matt Maddox who came charging on through. We'll take a look back at what exactly happened to the pair of them very shortly in their own respective instance. But with that, Marcel Fritsch is now given a bit of a lifeline here. Albeit Tim Darracott will make sure he doesn't feel that lifeline for very long as they make their way down to turn 10 once again. And Nathan Scott also getting close. They make the way, and there's a bit of a tap there. Nathan Scott on the back of Darracott as they power the way out with Scott having to back off. Karen Willison looks up the inside and gains P3 over on in the gold class as now Ash England also gets in the fight. And well, the silver leader is showing no signs of backing down versus his gold class peers, and he wants to try and follow his fellow Willison racing driver on around here as we can see that Karen Willison going again here versus Tim Darracott. The man is possessed to get P2. I think Karen Willison's definitely been given the motivation now to go after the win as they make the way to turn 1. Darracott's there on his inside. They battle on the brakes here. It's going to be Darracott on the right, Willison on the left. And as Willison holds outside to inside, he'll get the move done. And now Darracott will have the pressure of Ash England trying to come on through as they make the way out of turn 2 and down towards 3. You can see England there on the inside already trying to win the drag race. But the thing is, he's not got the toe of his teammate instead. That's what Darracott's got, and Darracott will be safe for now. But as they come roaring on down the hill in a quick line of stern, you can see that Jack Wood also looking to try and get into the mix here. And I think he'll be looking to the fact that Ash England is picking up places in front and thinking, why can't I be doing that, as they make the way through turns 5, 6 and 7. And Ward there running a little bit slowly through the left-hander of 5, and that may just have cost him a bit of a run here. And Nathan Foster wants to try and seize on that as soon as possible for the simple reason that right now he's caught up behind and finding no way to progress. But as they look to try and progress on one another, we see that Lee Holmes there up the inside of James Kersop. And then now to really turn this into a recovery drive, albeit he's got a lot of time to go, but he's got to be careful given that slide off circuit. And now the fact he's got to push the tyre compound, he could overtake the tyre compound early in the race and therefore cause it to degrade much faster compared to what his simulation runs in the final practice sessions would have shown as he makes his way into turn number 12. But as he comes into left-hander here, we'll have to wait to see how far he can crusade his way up the order, but he's definitely making a good start of it. But as we look back up towards your race leader right now, we can see Fritsch here still 7.5 tenths clear of Willison as they go into another lap. But Karen Willison on a 23.771 is absolutely romping up through the field right now. The man is pushing it, but the thing is, I have to wonder, given the fact he's putting this pace on so early, is he potentially overheating the tyre and therefore putting himself at risk of losing out? Meanwhile, Sproul versus Hammer, Sproul on the inside. They go 3 wide there for a brief moment with Nathan Scott having a slowdown penalty, and Sproul there defends. Hammer's going to try and go all the way around the outside, but there's contact between the two. Hammer's been given a little bit of a knock. Sproul there loses the car as well, and as they make the way out the hill, Danny Hugendorn picks up all the places as he he comes on through to take P6 from what was at the time P10, unless I'm mistaken. And Danny Hugendorn, the Dutchman here, with the apex misses try, definitely not missing his apex, and instead find a way to nail his apexes and gain all the places at once. Absolutely phenomenal stuff from Hugendorn as he makes his way down towards turn number 10, and Sproul now tucked in behind Hammer and finally losing the position to Hammer as they come through 10. We're now looking to try and latch onto the back and go chasing after the places further up the field, knowing that Hammer will be the one who has to essentially hammer his way on through the order. No pun intended there, ladies and gents, which is a loss of vocabulary, but as they make the way for each one into 13. Right now, Ulrich is definitely getting feisty, as meanwhile we look back to our race leaders and Marcel Fritsch continues to hold on, but the thing is Cameron Willesee now 1/10 behind, and Willesee looking so fast on the straight into turn 1. It's almost as if he's just able to take an extra 2 to 3 miles an hour before we account for the slipstream, and as they come through turn 2, Willesee on the inside there, Fritsch pins him slightly to the early apex, and as they exit out, Ash England battling with Tim Darracott. And meanwhile, Cameron Willesee there losing out, and Ash England moves back up to P2. And well, say it's not so. Surely we are not going to see an overall win for a silver class driver. That would be history right now. And Ash England definitely is showing the tenacity, the ferocity, and the fangs to want to win this race overall, not just in the silver class, as he makes his way up the hill into turn number 7. And Fringe will need to be wary of this. But meanwhile, Nathan Foster will start behind Danny Hugendorn. And well, Hugendorn right now definitely acts as a bit of a cork in the bottle as we ride on board and look back from the rear of the Apex Mrs. Porsche. As he makes way through turn 9 down towards 10. The challenge here will be it's coming to Humberstone, looks up the inside of Foster here. Humberstone getting out. I think the silver drivers here all being motivated a little bit, but as we see Hugendorn coming off the corner, goes very deep, and in fact now Nathan Foster still battling hard with Humberstone as they make their way into turn 12, but he locks up the front left brake and goes wide as a result, and as they all make their way on through, the simracing driver now has it all to do from a bit further back in the class as they make their way into turn 14. In fact, he's got silver drivers and gold drivers all intermingling in front of him. This is the worst case scenario, of course, because he's got to pick his way past drivers who he's meant to be racing and drivers who he doesn't expect to be racing. As meanwhile, Glenn Humberstone here trying to pick his way on past Hugendorn as they make their way to turn 1. Gets head out, but there's a lock up for Hugendorn, but he just stops the car from going wayward into the back of the ATEC Tech Racing Team Purple machine. And as they come through, meanwhile, we can see here that Marcel Rich and Ash England battling their way down towards turn number 3. And well, Darracott going on past there, as I think Ash England having a poor run off of the turn 2 apex. And as they make their way on through the corner, meanwhile, we see here Samuel Sproul looking up the inside of Hammer. He's going all in on the move. It's the Blackout Motorsport New Zealand driver, and as he commits to it, this is going to be very nip and tuck. The two of them were elbows out and one other at turn 3 a couple of laps ago. But as they head up the hill, Sproul they're trying to pin Hammer on the inside. He gets it done, and Hammer is forced to back out there as they make the way through turn number 7. Well, the Blackout Motorsport New Zealand driver here definitely showing it's not just about the offense, it's also about the defense. And as they come on through the corner, Craig Shield there makes his way on past Nathan Foster, who's really struggling right now. That front left tyre and the brake with it just does not seem to want to cooperate, and Nathan Foster with those difficulties this early into the race, that's only going to be compounded as time goes on, and that tyre degradation really starts to kick in, and that front left tyre will be aching into some of these heavier braking zones. But meanwhile, we look from them to the battle for P2 overall, and that is Ash England on the inside battling with Tim Darracott, and well, P2 in gold versus P1 in silver, and Darracott right now on the right hand side of your pitch as the camera turns around to make it on the left hand side, holding the inside run into turn 1, gets the move there. Cameron Willesee comes back on through, or does he? As England there battles with his teammate through too, and they won't want to take one over off the circuit. It's the last thing you want to do, but also on top of that, look who's coming up behind here, as it's the Willesee Racing trio now of England, Willesee and Ward. And as they make their way down towards turn number 3, well, Jack Ward will be looking to go for the win versus Ash England in the silver class, there's no doubt about it, but this is a huge opportunity for Willesee Racing to pick up major points in their championship campaign as a team as they make the way through turns 5, 6 and 7, and all of them right now vying for position, but at the same time also wanting to make it a triplet of top 5 positions as they come down through turn number 8. As they make their way through the left hand here and head up towards the hairpin. And meanwhile, Hammer and Sproul battling and exchanging places once again, with the German getting ahead of the New Zealander this time as they come out of turn 8, and I think Sproul going overly deep. But whilst we do have a brief moment to look a bit further back, we can see James Kersop here going up the inside of Alistair Hatcher. In fact, that was not Alistair Hatcher, that was Darren Fellows who got it a little bit wrong there, coming through turn number 8. And James Kersop now moves up to P6 in the silver class, P14 overall. But whilst there is a temporary lull in the action, we get to take a look back at what happened to Lee Holmes on the opening pair of laps, particularly on lap 2. With was in the run down the hill, and as he came onto the brakes, the rear of the car just letting go there and pointing him in the wrong direction. Meanwhile, as we saw drives making the way on down, well, it was Maddox there who went charging on straight. We'll lock up on the brakes there, and we'll both drivers in a near miss of their own doing as we return back to live pictures. And meanwhile, Nathan Foster up the inside there of Craig Shield to retake overall position P10. Not class position, however, as the gold driver makes his way past the silver driver. But the important thing for Nathan Foster, he's got past what is Craig Shield and can now break away from Lee Holmes behind. As meanwhile, Danny Hoondon, they're going very slowly off of turn 2 up towards 3. That'll be a slowdown for him, and that's cost him a lot of time after such a brilliant run only moments ago to move his way up the order. But the tables have turned, and now he's got it all to do once again as Holmes and Shield continue to battle their way up the hill. And it does look as though Lee Holmes getting his way up past Shield in the run to turn 5. But as they make the way through turn 7 and down towards 8, well, the fighting continues as we're hearing that Nathan Scott has had to be taken to the pit. And what exactly happened to Nathan Scott? This was in the run down from turn 2 and in towards 3, and as he made his way into the braking zone here, well, on the inside, and the car just simply not compact, instead not composed, and as a result decided to head to the pits. But meanwhile, we look back to that same moment and the battle that unfolded ahead, and this was from Danny Hoondon's perspective. Now you're going to watch here Nathan Scott on the right, and then you'll see in front of Nathan Foster on the left. Off goes what is there, I believe, Hammer. Also there's Sproul. You can see Scott just simply gets himself caught on the left hand side. In fact, there's Foster there, and Hoondon just picks up 5 places by simply not getting it wrong at all. And what a brilliant moment for the Apex Misses driver, but since then it has gone slightly the wrong way. And meanwhile, Darren Fellows, as we return to live pictures, now battling with James Kersop, who looks up the inside, and Kersop comes back at Fellows, who tried to go outside to inside, but instead of cutback there between the two drivers, and Darren Fellows gets the ultimate cutback around the outside of 2 and holds on to P13, P5 in the silver class here, and both drivers really giving it everything they can as they make their way down the hill towards turn number 3. And we can confirm it is a retirement, an early retirement for Nathan Scott. Unfortunate for the simracing driver, but still plenty more rounds to come. But as we look here from the battle of P5 in the silver class to the battle for the lead overall in the gold class, Marcel Fritsch continuing to hold Tim Darracott at bay for now, but with the pressure that is building, I wonder how long it'll be before we potentially see Darracott start to open up the legs and go for those moves. But we are not quite at the halfway point in this race as well. And that's something we do need to factor in the fact that with the fact we do have a lot of time remaining, well, Fritsch has been looking a bit slower at this time, but I wonder whether he's taking some of the pace out of the car in order to help preserve the tyres and therefore give himself greater pace consistency over the course of the 30 minutes as they make the way onto what is the 10th turn under race conditions in this feature race. But as they make the way into turn number 1 here, where you can see Ash England, Jack Ward behind, with Philipp Hammer a little bit further back, with this top 5 staying close together. And then you've got 3.5 seconds to the man with a plan to make it 6 wins in a row overall in the gold class. The WS Racing Esports driver here continuing to charge on as he makes his way down the hill. He's breaking away from Sproul, 2.1 seconds back, but Hammer here, once he gets close, will need to gradually pick his way on through. He is the fastest man on circuit currently. He just went best lap of everybody with a 23.33. As meanwhile we see Craig Shield battling here with Danny Hoondon. Hoondon up the inside into turn 3, and Shield there gets it tight behind, but Hoondon keeps it compact under braking and makes sure to gain the place, and it stays that way as the gold driver moves up to P10 overall, P8 in the gold class. As they head up through it, turn 6 into 7 now. We can see a little bit further back there James Kersop continuing to hound the back of Darren Fellows as they make the way through 6 up into 7, and with these two establishing quite a nice little rivalry between them as the number 99 privateer of Kersop here definitely trying to bring over the top 5 as he makes his way out of A, and both drivers are using all the way to the circuit. Kersop almost losing the rear right tyre there on corner exit. That just goes to show how aggressive he's having to be. But meanwhile, as they make the way through turn number 10 and both try to steer clear of drama, it could be potential drama out the front if one mistake occurs between everybody here as we continue to watch Marcel Fritsch jump on board and look back at what is Tim Darracott and Cameron Willisey staying close behind and looking to go fighting a bit later on. Now a new fastest lap of the race there from Philipp Hammer, now at 23.090, and to put that in perspective, Hammer right now has just taken 1.3 seconds out of the entire top 5. That's no mistake. Hammer is absolutely trailblazing around here. That gap between himself and what is the top 5 is coming down fast, and with it now I think there might be just a little bit of concern, particularly from Cameron Wilson Tim Darracott, in the fact they may have to deal with the WS Racing esports driver before they do have to think about any other drivers in front of him, including Marcel Fritsch. But as we see here, Fritsch having the little worry, the little tiptoe through turn 7, with Darracott looking for the move. It didn't quite work out in the end as they make the way down towards turn number 10. Onto the brakes they go. Well, Fritsch doing everything in his power, but meanwhile there's drama further back as Nathan Foster has gone around at turn 7 intake. The simracing driver pointed the wrong way, gets it pointed back the right way. And meanwhile, Glenn Humberstone here battling versus Matt Maddox. There's a little bit of a knock between the two of them. He has to fall back, but meanwhile, we have had a double move here. Tim Darracott and Karen Willis have both got past Marcel Fritsch. Now, how on earth has that happened as Fritsch here now being pressured by what is that Ash England who's up his inside? As we can see there with the latency as well, I think Fritsch having to open up the door. But meanwhile, Tim Darracott defends the inside here versus Karen Willisey. And Willisey has got the straight line speed, but Darracott's got the quarter speed. And as they make their way through turn 1 into 2, it's an attempt at a cut back there from Karen Willisey. Darracott immediately repositions the car on the inside of 2 to take all the momentum out, but Willisey's not going to take no for an answer here. And as they make their way down the hill in the charge to turn 3, can Willisey get it on the brakes here to take the lead of the race? Well, he's looking close, but no way through at this time. Instead, having to wait for Darracott to potentially make an error, but that's the one thing that Tim Darracott does not do in the high intensity modes, is make errors. As they come through turn at number 5 and into 6, 7 they go, all line of stone once more. And you can see now at the back of this group, Philipp Hammer has arrived, and his first target will be the silver driver of Jack Ward to take P5 overall as they make their way out of turn 8 and down towards 10. There's this top 6 only separated by 1.5 seconds from P1 to P6, makes its way into the aforementioned right-hander. Or as they come out of the corner now, it'll all be about who is starting to feel the pinch on that tyre degradation, who's got the rear tyres that can enable them to plant the throttle a little bit more, and who might have to just back off a little bit, conscious of the fact that as they continue to up the tempo here, the tyres may not last the duration. Well, Darracott we're looking good at this time, but as he comes up through turn number 14, Karen Willisey getting another very strong run off the corner as they make their way onto the timeline here down towards turn number 1, but the gap standing at 1.5 tenths as they reach the halfway point of the straight. Onto the anchors they go, and Darracott not as much under pressure this time and can take a bit more of a natural racing line, but you have to be wary of the fact that Karen Willisey does get some very strong runs off of these extended right-handers at turn 2 and turn 14, and that's where Darracott is looking exposed as it converts into straight line speed as they make their way to the next corner. But as they drop the way down, you see this top 3 slightly breaking away with Marcel Fritsch in P4. They're trying to keep Jack Ward at bay, but also conscious of the fact that his teammate Philipp Hammer is also just right behind, and we may expect a position swap soon. Presuming that Hammer can find his way past Ward, and Ward's not going to give him without a fight. He'd love to pick up an overall top 5. There's no question about it as they make their way into turn 8. Meanwhile, Nathan Foster with that spin only moments ago, now back up to speed and chased after Craig Schill. We chased after overall position, not class position, but this is how he ended up with that spin that dropped him down to P11 overall. He's making his way through turn 6 into 7 then as he came into the left-hander at turn 7. Comes off the corner and the rear starts to go early, and in the end the car just lets go and there's nothing he can do other than put the brakes on and be a passenger until it comes to its terminus. But as we return to live pictures, we do look back to Nathan Foster here, who continues to try and chase down Craig Schill, and in return we look up to leaders here, and we'll see the situation. Another lap turn as Tim Darracott again finds Karen Willisey with an attempt this time as they head into 1, thinks about it under braking, can't quite get it done there and looks for it. I think Tim Darracott there thinking about potentially needing to go defensive, but didn't decide to do so as they head out of turn number 2. But Karen Willisey there getting a good run, Darracott getting a much more effective run, using all the width of the road, and no exchange this time around. But as they make their way down towards turn number 3, we do see our drivers continue to charge on, and these battles are making their way ever more aggressively into latter stages of this race in terms of how close it will become the very finish between our drivers and who will be the one who really comes away with the ultimate result. That is going to be the challenge now, because everybody's been vying for it for so long, and it's this man that I think everybody inside the top 5 will be worried about. The WS Racing esports driver Philipp Hammer, given the fact that we saw at the Hockenheimring he seemed to be stuck for so long outside the top 5, and then everything clicked in the final 10 minutes and he just made his way into lead come the penultimate lap. And Hammer, I think, will be trying to work some more magic again despite the tight confines of the Rudskogen circuit. But as they make their way through the left-hand return at number 12, we can also see that Nathan Foster has moved up into P10 over. He's got ahead of Craig Schill, and therefore right now the gold driver has got ahead of the silver driver and now can focus on the rest of his gold peers in front of him, starting with Danny Hugendorn, who is 2.5 seconds up the road from him. But that's off camera, of course. We focus on our top 6 on camera, and as they make their way on to the next lap, well, we have heard that James Kersop has also had to jump to the pits with a retirement, unfortunate technical issue with the car, and we have a replay coming up as to what exactly happened. Well, this was Kersop coming down into turn 3, and already damage on the car there for Kersop. Now he's picked that up elsewhere. We're not quite sure where he's picked it up, but in the end the car going round there, and with the damage and with the flat spot on the tyres, he decided, and I think the team decided, the day was over. But for Kersop, it's all gone wrong. But meanwhile, we look up front to Tim Darracott, and it's all going right at the moment. Will be 10 minutes still on the clock there, and with it approximately what will be another 8 laps after this one. And can Darracott bring it on home, or will he find himself thwarted at the final couple of hurdles, proverbially at the final lap of the day? Well, he'll be hoping not. Of course, the Vect Esports behind him will be hoping the same as they make their way into turn number 10 again. But meanwhile, no exchange, and we're right on board the gearbox here at Darracott. Let's just try to see where Cameron Willis gains the time, because he does seem to find runs out of certain corners and can just make that gap come down by the half over the course of just 1 or 2 corner sequences. Now go through 13 to 14. I think this is where previously Willis was able to get the run, but as they come off the corner this time, Darracott actually getting the better exit line initially. Willis getting a tighter exit, but nothing between the two of them. And in fact, it does look as though now that despite Willis having the cars able to stay close, it briefly materialises and then goes into the ether before rematerialising again. Well, right now the two Britons here nip and tuck in terms of pace, and I think Darracott just nursing these tyres a little bit. Perhaps Cameron Willis has been pushing them hard and is now starting to feel the strain that is coming onto that tyre compound, because it does look as though his progress is gradually being halted as we go deeper into the final moments of this race. Ash England there still leading the silver class, P3 overall, and looking to bring home an overall podium as he makes his way on up the hill. He's got a 1.8 second gap over Marcel Fridge, who right now leading the second pack of cars, has left Jack Ward and Philipp Hammer behind. And I think Hammer's run of wins today may come to an end, given the fact that he's still stuck behind at Jack Ward and does not seem to be making any further progress. Indeed, the lap times are actually falling back into the low 25s, whereas the leaders right now in the mid 23s. It does look as though Hammer here, I think, a bit of trouble getting past Jack Ward, but at the same time just not able to attack the circuit as much as he did earlier on, and therefore it is falling away. Now, of course, one thing that we talked about earlier in one drive falling away from the lead of the race, it was when we saw that Marcel Fridge lost 2 places at the price of 1 versus Tim Darracott and Cameron Willesee. That was on lap number 11, we're on lap number 16 now. We take a look back at exactly how Tim Darracott took the lead of the race. Now, this was in the run to turn number 12, and we can see that Marcel Fridge will lock up on the front left, and as a result just losing the 2 places he lifted off of it, and well, that was the difference in the end, and the move was made on Willesee coming on through there. And then we did have, of course, what was Ash England also trying to pick his way up the inside and finding the space, and that's how Marcel Fridge lost 3 places for the price of 1 error. As we now return to live pictures here, and we continue to watch the battle for P4 unfold, but in fact we must look back up to the battle for the lead here, as Tim Darracott has got Cameron Willesee on his inside as they make the way through 5 and into 6. Well, it looks like Cameron Willesee, they're absolutely going for it at the most critical juncture, and Darracott goes very deep, and I wonder if Darracott here is now exposed to Ash England coming on through out to turn 8. He seems to cover it off, but Tim Darracott there not in a comfortable moment. And it would seem now that Cameron Willesee is on course to potentially try and make it his win of the day. And well, indeed, given the fact that none of these drivers have had a win for some time in the series, you can imagine they're all thirsty for it right now. But of course, with Marcel Fridge behind there in P4 and Jack Ward and Philipp Hammer following suit, these guys were looking to try and close up onto that top 3 as soon as they possibly can. But definitely Cameron Willesee there going all in. And well, let's take a look back at exactly how it happened. This was in the run to 3 and 4, and Darracott there just simply having a slow run through 3 and leaving the door slightly open. A small tap between the two, but Cameron Willesee seeing the opportunity, getting his nose stuck in and saying, I'm taking this whether you like it or not. And Darracott there being made to essentially keep the space open as we return to the live pictures, and Willesee having to go for it. Sometimes you've got to be bold, and it worked out that time, there's no question about it. As being on Marcel Fridge coming off of turn 2 and down towards 3. Well, that is Philipp Hammer looking up the inside of Ward. It's the run onto the brakes, and Hammer's not going to back out of this. He wants the place He knows that he's been held back by Jack Ward over the course of the last couple of laps on the inside there. They continue their journey into turn 4. Ward's not backing out either. Jack Ward wants the overall top 5 as well as P2 in the silver class. And as they come through turn 5, it's still side by side. Oh, there's contact between the two of them as Hammer there comes off of the apex of 6. Ward is knocked wide. He returns there, rejoining on the escape line. And as they make the way through turn 8, the runoff area there coming in handy for Ward. Well, it does settle the difference. It was the smallest of contacts between the two of them, but Philipp Hammer gets it done in the end, moving up to P5, and his next target will be his teammate of Marcel Fritsch, albeit not long left, 5 minutes to go, and the gap between Hammer and the race leader Cameron Willesey standing at 5.5 seconds, and I wonder if he's got any time left to be able to get to the leader, or whether he's going to be just hunting a place on the GT3 gold podium, and Marcel Fritsch holding the keys to the final spot, of course, as they make their way through turn at number 14. We look back to Samuel Sproul, who's also caught up to this medley of drivers as they make the way from turn 14 and down towards turn number 1, but as they charge their way on down, we can see here Sproul continuing to build that momentum, but just not enough to stay close enough to Hammer as he heads into left-hander at turn 1, into 2, and the New Zealander here right now I think focusing more and more just what he can do at this point in time as Ward falls back ever more from Sproul. I think the contact between Ward and Hammer has cost him quite a bit of time in the car, and perhaps right now he's deciding to lift off and just let it all go and opt instead to just bring the car home in a P2 that will be well deserved in class. I think if I was in Jack Ward's shoes I'd do the same here, because I think trying to fight and push it any harder for much longer is only going to be tantamount to further drama right at the end of this race. But meanwhile we look up to the front of the field here from one Willesey racing driver to another, and Cameron Willesey here, the lead driver of the team, making his way down into turn number 10, still clear of Tim Darracott and Ash England, and England not letting Darracott go for one moment here as they make the way on through it. And meanwhile Philipp Hammer has already closed up to the back of Marcel Fritsch. They have 2 more laps to go after this one, and by approximation we may get a third one in depending on when they cross the line, but either way you cut it, right now Philipp Hammer definitely trying to bring on home another podium, keep that run of podiums together as a minimum. I think that win is not coming his way to make it 6 in a row as he comes out to turn number 14. As he charges across to the timeline, where we look from drivers making their way onto the start for the straight to those at the end of it, and Darracott still having Ash England stay ever close as they make the way through the opening 2 corners, and Will England getting close behind here as he looks to get the better run out to turn number 2, builds his way out through the gearbox here. We jump aboard with the Willesey racing driver in the 34 car as they head down towards turn number 3. The door's open. Will he go all in for it here? I think he is going to try it. Darracott, they'll break as late as he possibly can. Darracott goes a bit deep, and Ash England forces the mistake from Tim Darracott and takes P2 overall, but can he now bring it all the way to the end in a daring move there from Ash England, and it all came down to fine margins. Meanwhile Craig Shaw and Alistair Hatcher battling their way into turn 1, and Craig Shaw up the inside for P3 in the silver class. That's P10 overall, and will the places continue to be exchanged for Ash England making a daring move, and the save for Craig Shaw for 88 Tip Racing Team Cyan. And will can Alistair Hatcher come back at his teammate here? They're enjoying a little bit of a squabble. We saw that of course at the Hockenheim ring last time out, where the two drivers were really enjoying battling with one another, and as they make the way out to turns 3 and 4 and up the hill once more, now we do look from them to Marcel Fritsch, who finds himself with his teammate behind him. Will Fritsch fight this, or will he decide to try and fend off Hammer to the very end? Both of them there in cars that have seen better pace earlier on in the race and have fallen off the pace in recent laps, but will it be the Austrian or the German who brings it on home for the final spot on the gold podium, we should say? Not GT3s, albeit these cars will look very similar to the upcoming Porsche 911 Mark II at GT3, or in fact the 992 at GT3 we should really say, based on the Cup car here. But as they make the way through turns 1 and 2 through the right-hander, right now Fritsch doing everything in his power to just hold on to that final podium spot with 1 more lap to go after this one. Indeed, we're currently on lap 21. We will get a 20-second lap in with a quick bit of mental maths as we're to estimate it, but either way the battle is on. And meanwhile further behind, Jack Ward here staying behind Sproul and getting a bit close here after falling back for a couple of laps, now deciding to go all in once more, and I think just offering himself up for another battle as they head towards the end of this race. But as he gets ready to head into the braking zone for turn 7 that carries all the way through into the drop of 8, further. Alistair Hatcher still trying to keep Craig Shield honest here as the two drivers make the way down towards turn number 3, and Hatcher close, but not close enough to try and force a move. As we can tell you that we also have 2 more retirees to this race, and that is Darren Ills and also Danny Hugendorn. In fact, Ills is coming out of the pit lane to finish the race as we understand it. So where was blighted the car, they've been able to fix it to get it to turn 1 more lap. Meanwhile, Hugendorn in the pit lane, and it was unfortunate for Hugendorn there, as I believe he'll not be finishing under his own momentum on the final lap that he's able to turn. But meanwhile, speaking of final laps, here is your race leader. He crosses the timeline, he goes on to a 22nd and final lap. He heads towards turn 1, and it's Willesey Race's Karen Willesey, who sets a personal best race at 23.407. And whilst he's not as fast as Ash England's 23.374, these two right now breaking clear of Tim Darracott in P3, and will gold leader ahead of silver leader here, and we'll go to see history of 2 teammates sharing the podium, and it will be P1, P2 for the respective class winners. That's never happened in the history of the Porsche Cup whatsoever. It's hosted by UKSimRacing, but we're going to see it today unless there's any late drama. What is round number 10 of season 5. But as we look from them to Philipp Hammer and Marcel Fritsch, we can see here that Hammer has found his way through, and well, how does that happen? We was in the run through turn 1 and 2, and on the exit of 2, Hammer to squeeze his nose there, but make it a drag race down towards turn number 3. But we do need to return to live pictures, ladies and gentlemen, because right now the race is almost at its conclusion, and as our drivers continue to head on down towards the very last couple of corners for each Holmes Row. We must meanwhile look from them as they exit the turn 10 hairpin and make the way to 12. So the drivers have just exited turn 12, and Karen Willesey here makes way to 13 and 14. It's not been an easy race. He's had to pick his way out 4 places from the start, but in the end he took the lead with a daring move up the inside of Tim Darracott, and as he comes to the line, Karen Willesey will be your gold winner in round number 10 of the Porsche Cup Season 5, ahead of Ash England, who is your silver winner and makes history. Back-to-back P1s for both classes, P1, P2 on the overall podium. Tim Darracott P3 there in the deserved P2 in the gold class, and it is Philipp Hammer P4 for Darracott Esports ahead of Marcel Fritsch P5, Samuel Sproul P6, and then Jack Ward P7 in what's second place in the silver class ahead of Lee Holmes there as he crosses the line in P8. Nathan Foster P9 as he comes on through the camera shot, and a difficult race for Nathan Foster, no question about it. But then very shortly we will see the completion of our top 10 overall, and also the podium of the silvers, with Craig Shield there taking both spots in regards to P10 overall and P3 in the silver class, beating Alistair Hatcher, his teammate for ATEC Tech Racing, team assigned to the line. And then Glenn Humberstone, we should say, P12 there, P5 in the silver class ahead of Darren Fellows. And then Matt Maddox of BDM Racing will be the last driver to finish this race on the lead lap, with Darren Ills completing the race 5 laps down, but still making it to the checker flag in P15 overall behind Matt Maddox, who is the BDM Racing driver, crosses the line. It was been a difficult race, but he's enjoyed some good battles at the start, and will bring on home with his P7 in the silver class. As we look from him to what is here, the 2 Willesey Racing drives out a bit of tug of war, it would seem, in the runoff area at turn number 3. And both of them absolutely pleased as punch with their performance today. And well, you can understand why, because they have put themselves, Willesey Racing has put itself in the history books to be the first team that has had the 2 class wins in P1 and P2 in direct order. And Ash England picking up his first P2 overall of the series. And what a run to bring it to P2 there. Fighting all the way from start to finish, and Karen Willesey definitely picking up with his, in fact, his first gold class win in his career in the Porsche Cup, unless I'm mistaken. And well, it was always going to be a question of how far could he rise going into this season, being promoted to the gold class. Well, there is your answer with his performance today. And well, Ash England did some more donuts there for the spectators. But as we now look to where's the scenic view here, it is time for us to give you an update on those race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. So the results are in for round number 10 of the Porsche Cup Season 5 in the feature at the Rudskogen Motorsenter circuit in Norway today. And we can see that Karen Willesey, your confirmed winner by 1.2 seconds in the end over Ash England at the line. It was the gold winner ahead of the silver winner, and both of them for Willesey Racing, with Tim Darracott there completed the overall podium, P3 for FX Esports and P2 in the gold class. P3 in the gold class, but P4 overall at Philipp Hammer there for Darracott Racing Esports. Not to be his day in chasing down the Effect Esports and the Willesee Racing drivers, finding himself stuck behind Jack Ward for a sizable period of time after a bit of a close-knit battle with Samuel Sproul, but in the end find his way to P4, and his run of wins comes to a hold with 5 wins on the bounce, but still a major force to be contended with, there's no question about it. Marcel Fritsch, his teammate for Darracott Racing Esports, comes home P5 there, ahead of Samuel Sproul, who completes the gold top 5 in P6 of Blackout Motorsport New Zealand, and it is second place in the silver class, but P7 overall for Jack Ward there, the Willesee Racing driver, in what looked to be at some points a run for a top 5 finish overall, but in the end had to settle for 7th, and I think you'll still be pleased at the pace he got to show today. Lee Holmes there for 88 Tech Racing Team Purple, recovering to P8 when all was said and done, but not his day in the office. And instead, I think looking forward to next time out now, head of Nathan Foster P9, the Simracing racing driver, also involved in a couple of major moments, and that cost him quite dear. And Craig Shield there completing the silver podium in P3 in class and P10 overall there for 88 Tech Racing Team Cyan. Head of best the rest, Alistair Hatcher by a margin of only 6/10 at the line, and his teammate there continued to have that fight, and the two of them definitely trying to vie for what is the #1 spot in the team. Head of Glenn Humberstone there for 88 Tech Racing Team Purple in P12, and then Darren Fellows and Matt Maddox complete your race finishers on the lead lap to P14, with Darren Hills there P15 finishing the race 5 laps down. The 88 Tech Racing team at red. Danny Hugendorn at P16 there for Apex Missers, and then James Kersop P17 there with the early retirement, a bit ahead of what was in the end, Nathan Scott in the end, who retired quite early on the race with what looked to be a tyre or a brake issue. And then last but not least, in terms of our finishing positions, Roxanne Marshall there, listed as P90, but will be classified as a did not start, as Marshall was not able to make her way to the grid for 24-hour punty people in either of the races today. But those are the race results, ladies and gentlemen. And now we're going to take a brief breather and give it approximately what will be 5 to 10 minutes before we are back for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. It has been a thrilling pair of races today at the Rudskogen Motorsenter. Plenty of battles up and down the field, but what did our drivers have to say about it? Don't go away, we'll find out shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers, and today we have 3 drivers as mixed across the classes. We're going to be starting off very shortly with Blackout Motorsport New Zealand's Samuel Sprout in the 66 car, who had a great run today of a 2nd place in class and overall in the sprint, and battling hard to a 5th place in class in the feature and just outside the overall top 5, before we then hear from the Willesey Racing pair starting of the gold driver of Karen Willesey, who back on the top step at the end of the feature and a P4 in the sprint, bringing home his first gold class win in the feature today. And then we'll be speaking to Ashley England, the Willesey Racing silver driver, who made it 2 wins on the bounce once again, but also made it to P2 in the feature race in a brilliant run of form. But starting off with our friendly New Zealander here, Samuel Sprout joins me now. Samuel, fantastic racing from yourself from start to finish today. A brilliant result in the sprint and an absolutely dogged defence for the first half of the feature as well. It looks like you left everything out on circuit today and held nothing back.
It was a good time out there. I really relished the opportunity to get door-to-door with Mr. Hammer because his pace is so good. And I sent it. Basically, sent it a bit hard early on and asked too much of the car into turn 3 and pushed Philipp off. So I gave that position back, and then we got to have another little battle a couple of laps later, where I scored my first off track during a race, my first slowdown during a race, which was a bit of a shame, but had a great time.
Well, it looks as though you're enjoying yourself from start to finish, and let's start off by talking a little bit about your qualifying session. Qualifying looked tough out there, only 8 minutes at a circuit that really does demand precision, but how was your qualifying session from your perspective? Do you think there was a bit more time out there, or was it the best lap you could get out of the car?
There was a lot more time out there for me. Obviously, when I join these races, I'm jumping in the sim at 6 a.m. and I think I was taking a little longer than usual to wake up and get in tune with the car. And I think in the race as well, I really wasn't quite in tune yet. But I did notice as well, everybody's pace was a bit lower than expected. So maybe the track wasn't rubbed in quite as much. But qualifying overall, I felt like I'd left half a second on the table, I think.
Well, goodness me, if you'd been able to find that half a second, it would have put you from what was P5 on the grid all the way up to effectively P2 on the grid. But still, line up alongside Tim Darracott is no mean feat. The Effect Esports driver, a very fast driver, and it was close between you two when we went green for the first time today in the sprint.
Yeah, another great guy to get door-to-door with. Super strong driver. I mean, there's a few of these guys at the top are just so fast. So even if you're sitting behind them, I'm just learning. I'm watching the lines, I'm learning. They're always braking a bit later, always getting on the gas a bit sooner. But really fun to be besides or behind those guys.
Indeed, and with the fun and the battling, we saw as the sprint race went on, you held nothing back in holding Darracott behind, and then went charging after the drivers in front to make your way into P2. Just take us through from your perspective, having to find your way in a 12-minute race up the field at a circuit that offers overtaking, but you've really got to be on the ball to make those overtakes.
Yeah, I think even in the sprint races, you kind of have to be semi-cautious on lap 1 and 2 at this circuit because the laps are so short, to get those tyres bedded in and bring them in a bit slower. Because if you send it too hard in those first 2 laps, you're either going to end up off the track or with a slowdown, or those last couple of laps, you're just going to have hopeless tyres. So I try to be as cautious as I can and then hold the kind of average pace of the session.
Caution playing very nicely into your hands, and as you picked up the P2, and also with that, I do believe that is the first time, unless I'm mistaken, we've seen you pick up a 2nd place, if not a place on the podium in a sprint.
Oh, great news. Cool. I didn't realise. That's awesome.
Well, it's an achievement, and then going into the feature race, of course, knowing that you'd be starting at P7 and with the company of Philipp Hammer, was there a particular way you wanted to approach the feature race, given the fact 2.5 times the time duration, a need to manage the tyres, but also you've got one of the fastest drivers on the grid starting alongside you on that 4th row?
Yeah, had a chat with my teammate who was unfortunately not present due to technical difficulties, Corey Lazarus, the other Kiwi. And our strategy really there is get ahead of Phil at the start. He's extremely fast, but I do notice he is quite cautious regarding passing in this car, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying that. And I just really wanted to get ahead and make him have to work for it. And I almost had him there at T2, but he got on the gas just that little bit sooner, got past me. But that was definitely the strategy. I've been practicing my starts a lot. I'm really trying to maximize that time off the line, because you can gain 3 positions easy if you have a blinding start in these cars. So just trying to find that perfect place to let the clutch go. That's something I'm practicing a lot.
The practice makes perfect. Whilst you couldn't quite get the jump on your rival going into the start of this race, it wasn't long before we saw you and a good number of drivers all in a long line following after the leader. It did look as though it was the Porsche train, or the proverbial Truly train from the Formula 1 motorsporting era. But in that train, just take us through managing, staying with the drivers in front, looking at the drivers behind, and also protecting the car. Is it just about waiting for the opportunities? What is going through your mind in that scenario?
Yeah, this track it has an interesting reputation. I really love it, and I think the more people race it, the more they love it. It is a tough one to get a pass on. It is a tough one to make space on, but because it's so technical, and it's got those really brutal slowdown and off-track penalties, you just want to keep the pressure on and force people into an error. And I quite like those long trains here because it feels like at any moment a gap's going to open up. So you're really just keeping an eye on everyone in front of you, watching the body language of all the cars. Even, you're watching the body language of a car 5 positions up, because if they get a little bit loose at the hairpin or something, there's this big opportunity for the pack to kind of spread out and have a quick musical chairs moment of passing before getting back into that line. And I find that to be a really exciting dynamic at a track like this.
Oh, indeed, and we've just seen the moment where you decide to go too wide with Hammer into turn 3, and that little bit of an elbow contact in the end between the two of you. No harm done, to be fair, and we saw how you gave the place back out of racing respect. Looked as though it was almost there, but just a lock-up in the end preventing you from sealing the deal.
Yeah, it's cheeky. He was squeezing me into a slowdown, a car ahead who had a slowdown. And then at the last second, that car with the slowdown hit their brakes, and I sort of nudged across because I didn't want to, take anyone out of the race. And I think Phil and I had a little tyre rub, and then that just unsettled the car and me coming down the hill there. And we were both full throttle for much longer than we probably should have been, and I locked up and pushed him a little bit wide. I'm glad that neither of us had a race-ending crash there, though. It was a good bit of racing. It was hard, and giving the place back was the right thing to do, in my opinion.
Well, I'm with you on that. Hard but fair racing all the way through, and that's what we do love to see. And after that point, settling in really for the rest of the race and gradually picking up a couple of places to finish P5 there. Did it feel as though the car perhaps was a little bit beyond its capabilities going later into the race? Like the tyres were not quite up to scratch anymore?
Yeah, I think just even that moment gave the tyres a bit of a run for their money, and I felt like I was driving backwards for the last sort of 5 or 6 laps of that race. A lot of understeer, obviously, in these cars, and when you're pushing a bit too hard, the understeer just gets worse. So it's hard to... The challenge is to remain patient to get better lap times, but that battle between waiting for the grip and wanting to hit the throttle, that's where all the pace is, I think. And I was losing that battle against patience.
Oh, indeed, and that's the thing as well, as we see having another bit of a side-by-side battling moment with Hammer on the pictures in the background, really enjoying that run into turn number 3. But of course, a rivalry that's ignited here today, and it carries on going into the next pair of rounds, and we head for the next pair of rounds to the United States of America for the Belle Isle Grand Prix circuit in the city of Detroit. How are you feeling for what is going to be our only street circuit on the calendar?
Oh, I can't wait. I think it's a brilliant circuit. It's extremely difficult. It requires a ton of focus. I've been putting some practice in there, and I think it's a phenomenal circuit with some really cool racing. It's going to be very interesting to see how the lineup takes that one on. I can't wait for that. It's going to be awesome.
I'm loving the enthusiasm already, and that's going to set yourself up well for the next pair of rounds. But before we let you go, Samuel, is there anywhere you'd like to give a shout out to on the broadcast or a thank you to this evening?
Yourself, Paul, for the great work you're doing. Thank you very much. And for everyone involved in UKSR, thanks for hosting us Kiwis down the other side of the world. It's fun to get up early. It feels nice and important getting up early and coming racing with you guys. And of course, my teammate Corey for all of his mentorship and advice. And everyone watching, thank you very much.
Well, likewise, thank you to yourself for joining me in the interview room this evening. Samuel, it has been a pleasure as always, and well, we feel special having yourself and also your teammate when Corey does come back, and we do wish him well. But having you guys join us from the other side of the globe in the early hours of the morning, it means a lot to us, and well, we look forward to seeing how you get on in a week's time in the US of A.
Thanks a ton, Paul. Thank you very much.
All the best. So hearing there from our first interview of this evening, the gold driver of Samuel Sproul from Blackout Motorsport New Zealand. The 66 driver really enjoying himself today, and whilst it was a qualifying session in which he and many drivers I think will feel that they had more time on the table, he lined up well in the third half of the third part of the grid in terms of the third lineup, and as he went into the opening race, he never looked back with regards to trying to make the moves. A P2 in the first race of the day, a well-deserved P2 at that, not able to quite follow it up with another podium in the feature, but still, as we've seen the pictures behind, enjoying the battling with Philipp Hammer and definitely going all in and find himself up there with the very best. I think Sproul continues at this rate of knots. There's no end to what he could potentially achieve, and we may be looking in the near future, if not for another P2, could it be his first win of the season, given the fact he's now picked up his first second place of the season and with his first sprint podium, but there's still plenty more I think he wants to achieve, and it will come his way gradually with practice making perfect, as he mentioned himself with regards to those clutch starts. But as we do now look on to our next interviewee, we'll be coming on to very shortly Cameron Willesee from Willesee Racing, the gold driver. And well, what a day it has been for Cameron Willesee with regards to his performances once again, and picking up his first win in what is the gold class since his transition. A driver who never looked back and has had a brilliant run of form today. And well, as we do wait for him to join us, it'll be interesting to hear his thoughts on not just the feature, but also a sprint race that looked very tight and tense up at the front. As we continue to just wait for the Willesee Racing driver to join us. In fact, I don't think we're able to put him in. In fact, he may just have to join us in the interview room. Just a slight technical hitch there, ladies and gentlemen. We do have to wait for our interview to come to us, and he joins us accordingly. Cameron, a fantastic pair of results today, a historical moment as well in the history of UKSimRacing's Porsche Cup for reasons that we'll come on to very shortly with regards to the 1-2 performance from yourself and also Ashley England in the feature race. But focusing on you firstly, you must be absolutely pleased to have picked up your first gold win of the season since the transition to the class.
It's unbelievable. I didn't even expect it, to be honest. We've done a lot of officials and practice with the team, and it was quick, but we didn't think we were that quick, to be honest. And when we got out on the track today, it felt a lot slower than the officials. So yeah, it was a pleasant surprise.
Well, it may have felt slower compared to the officials, but one thing's for certain, you weren't making it go any slower than you had to, given the fact the pace you showed from the outset was stellar. And speaking of qualifying, well, the qualifying session in the end saw you end up on the grid, unless we're very much mistaken, as we double check our notes, P3 on the grid, just missing out on the front row and being pipped to the front row, interesting enough, by your teammate Ash England in the silver class. How was qualifying for you? Was there a bit more time out there?
Yeah, I think I only really got 2 laps, and the qualifying set was quite difficult because you need time to get the tyres warmed up and things, and it was very, very pushy for me. So I didn't really get the temp up. The car wasn't the greatest, but I was happy with P3, to be honest, and Ash beating me was great.
Well, P3 start and being joined on the second row of the grid by Nathan Scott from simracing. And, well, going into the first race of the day, it looked a bit difficult up the front there, having a bit of nip and tuck with your rivals on the opening couple of laps. Just take us through that opening lap on cold tyres, the run into 2 trail braking zones at turns 1 and 2, and then into turn 3, the one corner where practically everybody almost went wide on the opening lap.
Well, the sprint race, I was P3 on the grid, but I think I fell to like P7. I got a shocking start and just wheel spin. First time the officials didn't get anything like that, but once we kind of sorted each other out, it wasn't too bad. It was just kind of nose to tail, can't really do much on this track. But the feature was slightly different. I got a much better start that time. Just followed the car in front, tried not to make a mistake or anything, and just let the race solve itself. It was quite a difficult one to the start, like you said, with the difficult corners. But
well, of course, with the sprint, having to make that recovery after losing places and doing so very successfully and coming onto the feature, it looked as though it was quite line astern for a good amount of the 30 minutes as we look at the pictures in the background on the broadcast currently, but also all the way through yourself, Ash England and Jack Ward working together, and at one point you're running P3 through to P5. That must have felt a bit of an emotional, if not quite a moment to bring a smile to your face, the fact that Willesee Racing really does seem to be conquering across all the classes.
yeah, well, Jack had quite a difficult sprint race, so we didn't even expect him to be there. But as soon as we saw him there, I thought, come on, let's do this. And yeah, I mean, Ash was really, really quick. Fair play to him. And I was sitting there like, come on, we can do this. We can just pressure them and just try and get there. And to think we finished first and second at the end, I just did not expect it at all.
Oh, indeed. And with that first and second, we now come on to the fact that you guys have made history in the Porsche Cup hosted by UKSimRacing, because it is the first time ever we have seen the winners of each class take P1 and P2 in succession for the same team as well. It's a rare achievement. It's the only team that's been able to achieve it, and it's gone to you guys first and foremost. And as you say, an absolutely fantastic moment. But I have to ask, what was the mood like down in the camp when it was confirmed?
Oh, it was ecstatic. I mean, Lewis was on the spotter, Jack as well, just watching in silver, and then me and Ash. I was just, yeah, it's ecstatic. I've never done a lot of iRacing sim stuff, so this is like my first proper shot at it, and it's a great feeling. It's almost like the real thing sometimes.
Oh, indeed, and as they say, whilst the racing may not be physically real, the emotions and everything that goes with it is definitely real, and one real moment of a test in terms of your racing credentials, battling hard with both Marcel Fritsch and also, well, Tim Darracott. Finding your way past those two was not easy, although Marcel Fritsch, it looked like a mistake, and then Tim Darracott, it looked like you had such a strong run coming off of turn 14, i.e. the final corner.
Yeah, well, I first got Tim early on in the race, in the last corner. He's just going wide and, well, we'll just stick our nose down there and just hope he doesn't come across, and he didn't. It was fair play to him. And it was just getting a run from there. But later on in the race, I just felt myself being so much quicker at, I think, turn 3. And it was just on the brakes in the downhill part. And Ash kept saying to me behind me, you can get him there, you can get him there. It's such a corner that's tightening so much, and you think, oh, I'm struggling with the understeer, I might not be able to get him. But there was just one opportunity, I thought I have to go for it. We may have rubbed doors a little bit, but we got down his inside, and fair play to him for leaving the space that he did, because I don't know if I would, but yeah, it was great racing with Tim and Marcel previously. It was great.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of a little bit of door rubbing, we did catch it on camera, and I think we saw a little bit of the effect esports paint still on the side of your car when it crossed the finish line, but still a great move, a bold one all the same. And now we look ahead, of course, to rounds 11 and 12 next time out in the United States of America in the city of Detroit for the Belle Isle Grand Prix. How are you feeling for our one and only street circuit on the calendar?
The officials I've done so far has either been really good or really bad. It's either no X and you have a great race, or it's 14X and you've lost half your safety rating. But it'll be an interesting one. If people just play it safe to begin with, I think we should be able to cope quite well. But it's just keeping it on the track there, really. Not much room.
Oh, it is going to be tight and technical, and it'll be interesting to see how you and the team get on. But just before we do let you go, Cameron, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to on the broadcast this evening?
Yeah, just everyone at UKSimRacing, Lewis helping on the spotter and everything, Trez for joining the team during the week, getting his first shot in the Porsche, and Ash for really helping me. Fair play to him. I think he let me through once, and to do that to your teammate, I know we're both fighting at the front and things, but fair play to him. So that's about it. And Jack as well. Can't forget Jack.
Oh, indeed. Well, with that, Cameron, it's been a pleasure, as always, to have you join me in the interview room. Congratulations once again on your historic achievements in the series today, and we look forward to plenty more from you at Belle Isle next week.
Thank you very much, Paul.
All the best.
Cheers.
So hearing there from Cameron Willesee, our gold driver Willesee Racing in the 43 car, and understandably emotional in all the right ways and reasons right now for a brilliant P4 finish in the sprint race, but more importantly, and perhaps the highlight of his day, taking the win overall and in class in the feature, with his Willesee Racing teammate of Ash England bringing home the silver win just behind, and having to do it the hard way, battling his way past two of the hardest fighting drivers on the grid, on Marcel Fritsch and also at Tim Darracott. And well, now the stakes will be high in the fact that Cameron Willesee will not just want to make it one win in the season, he'll be wanting to make it more. And next time out of Belle Isle, it's going to be a tricky street circuit to conquer, but I think that Willesee Racing will be bringing their A game once again, and can they make it additional wins into their bank accounts for each of their drivers, including Cameron Willesee. We'll find out then. But before we do come on to head into our next race, we do have one more interview for this evening. And well, that interviewee is none other than what is there, as we can see, Ashley England. Now, Ashley England having a good run in the silver class today and making it 2 more wins out of 2, and really continue to have that great run of form that has tailed all the way back to what was the Hockenheim Ring last time out. And as he gets ready to join us, and we get ready to, of course, see his thoughts on the racing, it'll be interesting to hear his perspective on the race in the feature in particular, given the fact that all the way through there was that tension from start to finish, and it was looking good. But as he joins me now in the interview room, Ashley, like what I've just said to your teammate Cameron Willesee, you have made history tonight for all the right reasons in making it a P1, P2 for the class winners, and a single team being able to do so in the form of Willesee Racing. But focusing on yourself, another 2 wins on the bounce now, making it 4 wins in a row since the Hockenheim Ring. I mean, where does it stop? The sky seems to be the limit for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like today, to be honest, I didn't expect to do as well as I did. I was struggling in the week, and compared to my teammates, I wasn't doing as well. But yeah, tonight, I don't know why, I just seemed to pull it out of the bag and seem to just keep it consistent, no mistakes, done really well. I'm happy with the result.
Well, indeed, it was a strong way to wrap up the day, but starting with the beginning, qualifying, putting it P2 on the grid overall, and also pipping your teammate to the front row of the grid. The only driver faster than you by 3/10 in was Philipp Hammer. Where did that qualifying lap come from?
I don't know, actually. I've been really strong in qualifying sort of all year. I think it's been probably one of my strongest points. Yeah, it's definitely one of the good things I've got is to put a lap together. But yeah, like I definitely probably had like a 10th, but yeah, it was like nearly a perfect lap, and I just got it right.
Well, getting it so right in qualifying and then going into the sprint. I mean, starting on the front row, it's the first time we've seen any silver driver start there over the course of the series out of qualifying. Was there any particular thought process going into the start of your sprint race? Did you think you could potentially have the run on Philipp Hammer into turn 1?
To be honest, I just wanted to settle into second and hopefully stay there. But yeah, I thought I'd be careful. Obviously, I didn't want to make a mistake and go off or anything like that. So I just made sure braked at the right time, got into the first corner, all good, and then we'd go from there.
Well, a smart approach and a very sensible one, given the fact that you're picking up the points in class rather than overall. And as the sprint went on, we did see you drop a couple of places to Samuel Sprout, to Lee Holmes, and then your teammate Cameron Willisey. Was there any thought or any moment where you thought to yourself, you know what, I really want to try and get my elbows out, or was it always prioritise the class win over those overall positions?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I got a bit of an unlucky slowdown and had to slow down in a part of the track where you got to go really slow to get rid of the slowdown. So, obviously, I got rid of that and I dropped back to 5th, I think it was. And then I thought, all right, just keep me on track, get no more slowdowns, and I'll be all right. And I'll have a good starting position for the feature.
Well, speaking of a good starting position for the feature, ended up on the grid on what was, if my memory serves me correctly, P4 on the grid, so the second row, and a great start from yourself off the line. Very nip and tuck in the runs, turns 1, 2 and 3, but then fighting for a place inside the top 5 and eventually a podium. Just take us through the feature race as a whole from yourself, because it looked as though your pace there was really strong.
Yeah, it was. It was a bit like qualifying from the start of the race. I felt really good, comfortable. Obviously, the drivers that were in front of me finished behind me in the sprint race. So, yeah, I just seemed to really have really good pace from the start. Got going, like you say. I got up into 4th, and then I was behind the top 3. Having a little bit of a battle. Cam, my teammate, got a unfortunate slowdown. It was like 2.7 seconds, I believe, so he had to let a few cars through. Lost a bit of time. I then made the move on Darracott, got into 2nd. It was quite a close moment through the last bend. He went a little bit wide going in, just giving me the room to get my nose up the inside, and I managed to get past. And then got behind Fritsch and tried to go for a move into turn 1. Got the move done, but I turned in a little bit too early and got a slowdown, which is unfortunate because I think that would have been the lead and I maybe would have pulled away. So then I ended up back into 3rd, and then my teammate Cam caught up with me. Decided it was best to let him go because he was really quick at that point in the race. Let him through. Then we was both trying to figure out where it was best for him to get by Darracott, and he managed to make the move stick down the bottom of the hill into turn 4. And then, Fritsch made a mistake in the lead. We all ended up getting by. And then I made a move on Darracott down the hill, same place Cameron did, and got into 2nd and thought, right, if I can just pull away from Darracott, this will be good enough. And Darracott ran into the back of me in the middle sector accidentally and lost a bit of time because of that. But then, settled into 2nd. Could have, if I really wanted to, tried to push and catch Cam, but not worth it considering I'm in silver and he's gold, and a 1-2 for us is really good, and then it's a win in both classes as well.
Oh, indeed. And with regards to your battle with Tim Darracott, of course, we saw the very smooth move up the inside to take the place off of him. And besides the small tap of contact, it did look as though as the race wore down its final few laps, you were just about matching Darracott on pace, but Darracott was always an ever-present threat. I have to ask, were you trying to manage your pace at that point, or was it you still had to keep going 100% and Darracott was just not letting you have any breathing room?
Yeah, I was really pushing, to be honest. I was late in the brakes and that, but I was trying to be a little bit cautious at the same time. But yeah, Tim's obviously a really quick driver, and once I got by, I thought, all right, I've just got no mistakes and I should be all right, considering we had a similar pace. So kept it all together, kept the car on track, no mistakes, and thought just make it to the finish and you'll be all right in P2.
Oh, indeed. And speaking of that finish, as I was saying to Cameron only moments ago, you have been the second part of the pair that have made history in the UK Sim Racing Porsche Cup Season 5, and indeed the whole series as a whole, to be the only two drivers from a single team who have made it P1, P2, where it's the class wins in P1 and P2 respectively. A brilliant moment. I didn't think we'd ever see it, but we have seen it today. And, well, from your perspective, just your thoughts on that achievement, something that's incredibly rare in class-based racing.
Yeah, right. He's saying it's really good. Like, it's obviously, I didn't know if I was even going to be doing this, to be honest, and I got convinced to do it. Like, they know that I can drive and do well, so drive cleanly and all that. So they was like, "Oh, you got to do it. You got to do it." And yeah, it's good for them as well. Really, all the team, good for everyone in the team, to be honest. Yeah, it's one of them. It's weird because I didn't expect to do as well as we did, but yeah, like when I did that qualifying lap, I was like, oh, we're on for a good result today. And then yeah, I think everything just fell our way in the feature race, and we got unlucky slowdowns, but we would have only been a little bit further ahead of what we was. So yeah, just I think it's a really good result considering we're not like the most active drivers on this. Like I know Cam did last year, but I'm not the most active. I'm only really active on iRacing over the winter, and before they told me to do this, I'd never even driven the Porsche Cup car. So yeah, obviously we've been putting a lot of practice in and a lot of effort's gone into it, and I'm glad it's all paying off and that we're doing well.
Well, indeed, it's been fantastic to see how much you've grown in terms of pace and consistency over the course of the rounds thus far. And speaking of rounds that still lie in wait, we head to the city of Detroit in the US of A next time out for the Belle Isle Grand Prix. Your thoughts on our one and only street circuit on the calendar?
It's a very tricky track. Like I see, the walls are really close. You can't make a mistake. A lock up means you're in the wall, or down the escape road, and then you got to try and spin around quickly and get back on track. Yeah, I think it's gonna be whoever keeps it on track, keeps it pointing in the right direction, and puts a good lap in quali up front. They'll probably end up being the winners because it's a hard track to overtake. There's probably only really one overtaking spot in my opinion. But yeah, you never know. It might turn out to be completely opposite and loads of overtaking. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a tricky track. It'll be all about qualifying, and hopefully I can do the same as what I did today in qualifying and be up there again. But we'll definitely see. I think it's going to be a unique one.
Oh, most definitely. I agree with you there, and we look forward to seeing how you rise to the challenge in the US of A. But just before we do let you go, Ashley, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to live on the broadcast this evening?
Same as usual, just everyone in Willesee Racing, and just like thanks for getting me involved, and I've really enjoyed doing it with them, and hopefully I can continue doing it, and yeah, hopefully once I presume I'm going to be promoted now, considering how well I'm doing, into gold class, and then hopefully we can go for 1-2s overall in gold class.
I'm loving the enthusiasm. I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it so much. But with that, thank you for joining me in the interview room once again. Congratulations on another pair of wins to add to your silver class tally, and also at second place in the feature overall. And we look forward to seeing you out at circuit in a week's time.
Lovely. Thank you very much. See ya. Bye-bye.
All the best. So hearing there from our final interview of the day, the number 34 Willesee Racing driver for Ashley England, and well, the silver class leader could not get it wrong today. He got everything absolutely right, whether it fell his way or he had to graft it on out. From the qualifying lap that put him on the front row of the grid through to the result in the sprint that was P5 overall, a winning class, and set himself up well for the reverse grid going into the feature, and in the feature making the key moves at the right time to gain places on drivers who you cannot underestimate, aka Tim Darracott and Marcel Fritsch, but finding a way on through. Ashley England definitely showing his credentials, and for a driver who's not really raced the Porsche Cup car too frequently compared to his peers, definitely showing how well it's coming to him, and we're already thinking about being in the gold class next season. I can tell you one thing right now, if he's already thinking about being in the gold class next season, well, firstly, we've got to imagine how much of a force he's going to be in the remainder of this season, and how we could potentially see more of him right up there inside the top 5 overall, if not the overall podium, because I think he's had a taste of the overall champagne, and he doesn't want to forget that taste any time soon. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And just to remind you, you heard from, firstly, the Blackout Motorsport New Zealand driver in the number 66 car of Samuel Sprout in the gold class. We then heard from our second interview of Karen Willesee, the 43 Willesee Racing driver in the gold class as well. And then we heard from our silver double winner today from Willesee Racing in the 34 car, Ashley England. And fantastic performances from all of them. And again, a special congratulations to Willesee Racing's Karen Willesee and Ashley England for being the first team to make it a 1-2 overall, where the winners are in P1 and P2 there, and they are in both class. They are both the class winners, we should say, as we fumble our words. But enough fumbling, enough grumbling. That concludes our interviews for today, and now it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the UK sim racing community in terms of all the series we run and everything else in between, well, you can of course find out more about us by heading firstly to our website. You saw it earlier in today's broadcast, and the URL once again UKSimRacing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you'd like to go to some of our alternative social media, you can of course go to our official Twitter, which may be found at twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. Also, a big thank you to our affiliates, and just to remind you of them once again. Firstly, Swelio Meta Sim Racing Coaching, their YouTube URL available on screen there. And Swelio Meta, one of the premier sim racing coaches when it comes to iRacing. Firstly, for the fact that a multi-time official champion in the official iRacing series, including the Porsche Cup cars in 2021, but also a very different type of sim racing coach compared to most. Whereas most coaches will explain to you the 101 things that you need to improve to gain your optimum lap time or gain what you're looking to achieve out of your sim racing coaching experience. Swelio Meta focuses on just 3 key things, the most important things for you to improve on first and foremost, to avoid information overload and enable you to gradually realise your improvement ambitions. And that's why Swelio Meta Sim Racing Coaching is highly recommended. We also have Race Anywhere. Their address is raceanywhere.co.uk, and Race Anywhere is the provider of curated sim racing equipment and to only stock products that represent excellent value for the sim racing community. We also have Demon Tweaks. They're the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide on their address of demon-tweaks.com, meaning that no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks can help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions. And lastly, we do have Amazon. Their web address amazon.co.uk, and Amazon is the company striving to be the Earth's most customer-centric company, the Earth's best employer, and the Earth's safest place to work for the provision of concepts pioneered by Amazon, including but not limited to Amazon Prime, Fire tablets, and Amazon Alexa. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, our attention for our drivers now turns to the visit to the United States of America, the first of many visits over the course of the remainder of the season. And in rounds number 11 and 12, we'll be taken to the city of Detroit for the Detroit Grand Prix, or the Belle Isle Grand Prix, on Thursday the 9th of February 2023. The one and only formal street circuit course on the calendar. This is going to be a circuit like no other when it comes to high-stakes, high-intensity racing. Because we heard from our drivers only moments ago, make a mistake and you either end up down an escape road, or worse, you end up in the wall and the race is over. And with a high opportunity for our drivers to lock up the brakes and slide the way off circuit, it is going to be a pair of races like no other, where the utmost precision is going to be demanded from our drivers lap after lap from qualifying to the final checker flag. Who will come away in Detroit the winner over the course of each race? Well, we'll have to find out then and then. But until then, we have been UK Sim Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.